Okay, the public hearing by the Downers Grove Planning and Zoning Commission will now be called to order at 7 p.m. on June 1st, 2026. Would you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Roll call.
All right, Frankovic.
Present.
Patel.
Here.
Lincoln. Absence. Eberhart.
Here.
Rays.
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
Barry.
Here.
Chairman Rickard.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, before we get started, just a couple of standing announcements because we do have a lot of people in the room today. If you have an electronic device that makes noise, you could please silence it or turn it off for the duration of the meeting. That would be appreciated. Also, there's a QR code on the white counter on that side of the room if you want to, or it's actually on the screen. That will take that QR code will take you to the meeting information if you want to follow along on a device of some type, or all the material will be displayed on all three monitors. And there is a sign-in sheet that will be coming around. There it is in the back of the room right now. That is just to kind of record your attendance at the meeting for the meeting minutes. So if you could please make sure that you sign that before you leave, that would be appreciated. First item, we have our two sets of meeting minutes from the meeting of April 27th and from the May 4th meeting. Any corrections to either set of minutes? Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes, both sets as presented?
Sure.
Motion
to approve
Ms.
the minutes.
Eberhart,
Yes.
second by Ms. Frankovic. All in favor of approval, or do we need to vote?
You can do voice vote.
Below that.
Yep.
Okay. Roll call.
I'll just say a voice vote.
All in favor to approve the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. You
Motion's
think after
approved,
doing
thank
this long, I would remember that one. Okay, so we have a public hearing tonight and then a continuation of a kind of a pending item for zoning text amendments that has been ongoing. But before we get going, I just want to summarize the format for the public hearing. I'm assuming that there may be some of you who have not attended one of these in the past, but what we will do is to start off with the petitioner's application. We have the petitioner come up and present their case or their application, followed by questions from the Plan Commission of the applicant. And then we go to public testimony, which is the public input portion of the meeting where each of you will have an opportunity to come up and speak regarding the application. Just similar to the village council meetings, because of the number of people we have, we ask you to limit that to 5 minutes if possible. It's perfectly acceptable when you come up to, if there's a kind of a repeat comments that keep coming up, it's acceptable to just say, hey, I agree with what's been said prior. But it's not a hard stop, but we'd like to have you wrap it up by the 5 minute mark if at all possible. After the public testimony portion is finished, we'll go to the staff report. A member of staff will present the staff report regarding the case. And then we have what we call a petitioner's rebuttal opportunity where the applicant can come up after we've gotten all the input to that point. And it's their opportunity to respond to any comments that have come up to that point, or to just make any final closing comments that they'd like to make. And at that point, kind of move from the public testimony portion to up here to where we will kind of deliberate the item and get commissioner comments and then ultimately get a vote on this item to move it forward to the village council. So with that, because it is a public hearing, we do need to swear everybody in. We kind of do it as a group up front at this point. So if you could just raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, state in the affirmative, I do.
I do.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, we will move into the public hearing for right one here. This is a petition seeking approval of a special. No, that's not that one. requesting approval for a plan unit development and a zoning map amendment, rezoning from OR Office Research to B2 PUD General Retail Business Plan Unit Development to convert an existing office building into a multifamily apartment building at 1020 31st Street. Okay, so not sure who's it's the petitioners. Your presentation time. If you could just introduce yourself for the record,
Sure.
and then the floor is yours to go on with your presentation.
Thank you. My name is Nick Standiford. I'm a land use attorney at Shane Banks. Address is 70 West Madison in Chicago, Illinois. I'm pleased to represent Highland Oaks Holdings, the property owner of the property at 1020 West 31st Street. This is their request to rezone the property from OR office to B2/PUD general business. Highlands Oaks also seeks this planned development designation to construct 184 market rate apartments and convert the existing office building that's at the property into those apartments. With me here tonight are Dennis Stradievsky. He's the applicant representative. We have Eric Lukacek. He's the architect at Ware Malcolm. And we have Javier Milan, who's from a principal at KLOA. They do traffic analysis. We also have Urena, and I'm not going to try your last name, Urena, because I'm on the video and I'll screw it up. So she's the manager of the applicant, and she's here to answer any questions about ownership. So I'm going to let them describe to you the project here on the slides to follow. And we look forward to hearing any questions from the audience and from this body up here about the project. We think it's a great project. We need to rezone the project because it's residential is not permitted in the office district. And staff asked us to do the plan development in order to control the development. Otherwise, if we rezoned it simply to the business designation, we could do any type of residential we wanted on the property. But this PUD actually constricts us to build what we say we're going to build in the plans. So you'll hear about the plans, you'll hear about the amenities that we're providing for our tenants. You hear about all the parking that's there at the existing parking structure at the site. And I'll talk about a little bit about the zoning, a little bit about the comprehensive plan that the village has laid out. I know you're working on updating your comprehensive plan, so hopefully I don't provide stale analysis. But there is a bike lane that's envisioned kind of in front of the site that we'll talk about in a little bit. So we think this is a great project that will bring a lot of opportunities for housing to Downers Grove. And I'll let the applicant come up and go through the slides.
Good.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for your time. My name is Dennis Stradievsky. Thank you as well, Nick, for the introduction.
Yeah, if you could
I apologize.
get into that mic a little bit. There you
Sure
go.
thing. In short, we're proposing to reposition an aging and largely vacant office building into 184 newly constructed market rate apartment homes. This is done without demolishing the existing structure, without expanding the building footprint, and without adding a single square foot. While also achieving these goals, we're creating significant new green space throughout the site. Our architect on the project is Ware Malcolm, a nationally recognized firm with deep experience in office to residential conversions. Over the next few slides, we'll walk you through where the site sits, the condition of the building today, what we're proposing, and how the request meets the village's review criteria. Here we have the site location and site map. The property sits on West 31st Street, right in the heart of Finley Road and the Butterfield Road corridor with direct access to I-88 and Highland Avenue. The property directly adjacent to our site is Zone B2, and our request is a continuation of the same zoning. On convenience, Yorktown Center is only about a mile north, just across I-88 up Highland Avenue. Residents are minutes away from hundreds of stores and restaurants. Additionally, Midwestern's University campus is less than a mile on the same street, a driver for steady housing from demand from faculty, staff, as well as the graduate students. The site today. For more than 2 decades, it was anchored by Blue Cross Blue Shield, which roughly leased about 82% of the building. When Blue Cross Blue Shield relocated in 2022, they took the vast majority of the occupancy with them. Within approximately 2 months, we will only have about one tenant left who amounts to 1,500 square feet in a 220,000 square foot building. This is an underused asset sitting in the community, and it's an incredibly structurally sound building in a great location that the market no longer wants as office space. With that, I will pass it on to my colleague and architect, Eric, to describe the proposed retrofit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Evening, Eric Lukacek, Ware Malcolm, design architect. What you'll see here on the first slide is what we're going to call our lowest level or ground floor. This is where we enter the building from the ground floor parking areas. What we're providing here is a list of amenities for the residents. We're going to have a fitness room with a yoga studio attached to it. We're going to have a co-working event or space for our residents. We have a club room for parties and gatherings. We have a small theater with about 12 seats for kind of an intimate movie night. We have a golf simulator proposed, and we are reallocating our existing car wash bay for residents. We have a mix of units provided within that 184 units. We are providing a mix of studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms to the tune of about 13.5% for studios, 37% 1 bedrooms, and 49.5% 2 bedrooms. Additionally, within the ground floor, one second. Additionally, within the ground floor and the site plan, we are removing 186 parking stalls out of 750 stalls. That equates to about 30,000 square foot of additional green space that we're adding to the project, of which we will landscape and amenitize. On the northwest corner, where we're removing some cars, we are providing pickleball, half-court basketball, as well as a dog park for the residents as additional amenity. On level 2 of the garage, we are removing about 90 cars from there and providing outdoor amenity space for the residents in the tune of lounge spaces, outdoor theater, for movie nights, and fire pits. We have a typical floor plan, although not typical for every floor, but this is majority of the typical floor. We are providing about 80% or even higher of outdoor balcony spaces for each unit at a minimum of 72 square feet per unit. That covers the architectural aspect. Thank you. Oh, all right, 1 second, sorry. On the exterior, we are adding some architectural frame moves to the exterior to create less of this office aesthetic. And so we are creating these frames with alternating balconies. These balconies then move from floor to floor, side to side, creating this outdoor space and giving more of a human scale to the building rather than your typical office building. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Javier Milan. I'm a principal with KLOA Incorporated, 9575 West Higgins Road in Rosemont. And we were retained to conduct the traffic study for the proposed development. This traffic study followed all industry guidelines, the state of Illinois, and the Village of Douglas Grove requirements. So as part of the traffic study, vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle counts were conducted during the weekday morning, 7 to 9 a.m., and the evening, 4 to 6 p.m. peak periods at the intersection of Highland Avenue with 31st Street and at the access drives along 31st Street inside the business complex. Capacity analysis were then conducted at the studied intersections, and based on the results of the analysis, all of the intersections are operating at acceptable levels of service, therefore indicating that they're operating efficiently and there is sufficient reserve capacity. We also prepare a trip generation comparison between the proposed development and the office building, assuming full occupancy. Right now, that building is almost pretty much vacant. So the trips estimated to be generated by the existing office building, assuming full occupancy, were estimated based on trip generation rates published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, or ITE, Trip Generation Manual. This is the standard used by the federal government, the state, county, municipalities, and consultants alike. So based on the comparison, the proposed development is projected to generate approximately 75% less fewer trips than the existing office building, assuming full occupancy. We then conducted analysis of future conditions, and based on this analysis, and I'm sorry, let me go back. For future conditions, we don't analyze in a vacuum. We apply a growth rate that is provided to us by the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, and that's 0.5% per year compounded to reflect year 2031. And on top of that, we also added traffic to be generated by the approximately 60,000 square feet of vacancies that are right now in the office building complex. So based on the analysis, the access system will be adequate in accommodating the traffic estimated to be generated by the proposed development. And the proposed residential development will have a limited impact on the operations of the signalized intersection of Highland Avenue with 31st Street, given that under projected conditions, the intersection overall level of service, intersection as a whole, and all the movements will actually operate at the same level of service as under existing conditions. So that summarizes my presentation.
Okay, I'm back up. So they brought me back up here to talk about the standards because I'm a zoning attorney and that's my job. So these are the zoning map amendment standards that are in your packet. We've addressed these. I'm not going to read them off to you, but I could if you'd like, but we provided written responses to each of these. So I'll just go and try to summarize these as best I can. The first standard when looking at a rezoning is the existing uses in zoning of nearby properties. So immediately to the east is a restaurant that's zoned B2. To the south and the west is office space. That's the same zoning as we currently have, OR. And across the highway is the shopping center, and that's zoned B3. So you have a mix of B2, which is what we're going for, B3, which is across the highway, and office research, which is what we're currently zoned as. So it's not spot zoning. You know, this is consistent with nearby zoning parcels. The next factor is the extent to which the particular zoning restrictions affect property values. So we just heard testimony about slumping office market. You know, this building, the reason it turned over is because they couldn't fill it. They couldn't fill it with office tenants. You know, in my office, half the people work from home, and it looks like companies across the country are experiencing that same thing, where their previous spaces where they had a lot of need for office space, they don't have that anymore. People are working from home. They like working from home. And so now the building is in a position where if it's not filled, it's going to deteriorate and the property values will decline. So what we're proposing to do is to convert that building to residential. We know that the property values won't decline with residential because there's a massive need for residential. We hear it all over the place about the need for more housing and bringing more housing to the area. So we know that this is going to be a good thing for property values. We just heard testimony about it not impacting traffic because there's sufficient parking on the site. It's already a built out site where people were commuting every single day, many hours a day. This is going to be less traffic than there was previously. So it's not going to affect property values. We also heard about the abundant landscaping that's going to be provided. That's going to make it look a lot nicer in the area as well. So that should help property values. The next one is the extent to which any diminution in property values is offset by an increase in the public health, safety, and welfare. So again, there's no diminution in property values. If anything, they're going to go up. The public health, safety, and welfare will benefit from additional housing. Folks who want to find places to live, they'll be given a place to live if they can afford the rent. Again, there's going to have green space, no impact on traffic. The next factor is number 4 is the suitability of the property for the zone purpose. Well, right now it's not suitable for the zone purpose because you can't do residential in the office research district. And that's why we're seeking the rezoning. Residential is a permitted use in the B2 district, so it would be suitable. Number 5, the length of time the property has been vacant as zoned. I'm not sure how long, I can't speak to that, how long it's been not fully occupied, but I know when they bought the building, they was not fully occupied. And the biggest tenant in the building, I think, is on the way out or is already out. Number 6, the value to the community of the proposed use. More residential is always great. And I know there's been some concerns I've heard about adding students to the school district. So I did go on the websites, and it looks like the District 58 has 4,770 students currently enrolled, and the High School District 99 has 4,630 students enrolled. So this is a mix. These aren't all 2-bedroom apartments. About half of them are 2-bedroom, half are 1-bedroom. So among those 2 bedrooms, really, how many kids are you going to have living in there? Probably no more than 2, and everyone may not have a kid. I mean, these are more geared to folks who want to live and work in the area, young folks who want to find a place to live, not really family situations. But in any event, we're talking maybe 90, 100 kids, and we just talked about 4,500 kids per district. So that's not a big, it's a kind of a drop in the bucket. So we feel like it's not going to overburden the schools. It'll give people the opportunity to utilize these amazing schools. And the last is the comprehensive plan. So, and I talked about, there's a slide at the end we'll talk about a little bit, but this is in the Butterfield Road sub-district of the village. And the big thing about this district, it talks about renovating buildings so they don't become functionally obsolete. And that's exactly what we're doing with this site. There's also a proposed bike lane that I don't know if it's been built yet. I didn't have time to, I actually drove by it on the way here, but I didn't go in for fear of being late to this meeting. But so if the bike lane's already built, my apologies. But I do know that the village's comprehensive plan plans for a bike lane to go right in front of the facility. I think I can show you on this last slide here. So what I did was an overlay kind of the property, and I put the bike lane in where it would go. So is that, did the bike lane get built?
Not yet.
Okay, not yet. So someday, hopefully that'll get built, and that'll give folks an opportunity to utilize, biking. And we have biking spaces available. But I mean, this property, the best feature about it is it's so close to the highway. I mean, you can get on in a matter of seconds. So it's got wonderful, wonderful transportation access. So those are the factors for the rezoning. The factors for the plan development, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Number one is basically, did you comply with the review criteria for rezoning? And we just went to that, so I don't need to repeat that. Number two is whether the PUD and map amendment will be consistent with the comprehensive plan. And we just talked about that on the last factor, so we don't need to repeat that. The next is whether the PUD complies with the PUD overlay district provisions of section 4.030. And I'm going to read out what I wrote because I think it's better than me trying to summarize it. So I said, yes, this PUD creates 1- and 2-bedroom apartment for a variety of lifestyle choices to meet the needs of different groups. The PUD helps advance the goals/policies of the comprehensive plan as set forth above. The PUD is a creative way to respond to the lagging office market and offers a coordinated transportation system with tenants/guests arriving by car, rideshare, or using the village's proposed bicycle route on 31st Street. So that's number 3. Number 4 is whether there will be public benefits that would be greater than those would have resulted under conventional regulations. So this kind of goes to as part of a PUD, what you ask for are certain deviations from the code. You can ask for several variations essentially within one approval. And so I don't know if it's been touched on yet, but we're asking for a maximum FAR of 0.75. We're asking a variation from that so that we can have as many units as we're looking for. We're looking for a maximum building height of 35 feet. This is already a constructed building. We're not going to lob off the top to make it compliant. And the last is the placement of the sports court and dog run within the street yard. So this is really hard to see on this slide, but basically there's a setback that you got to be from the highway. And we are encroaching on the setback from Route 88 with our courts. I want to make sure I get the names of the courts right. With the sport court and the dog run. So that's what that's why we're going back in the setback. And the reason is that's the only place you can put it. The site is already built out. So we're just looking to get a little closer to the highway. And we think those uses will be of no concern to people coming down that expressway. So that's number 4. And the last one is number 5, whether the appropriate terms and conditions have been imposed on the approval to protect the interests of surrounding property owners, residents, existing and future residents of the PUD and general public. So I think the big one here is what I talked about earlier. A PUD is helpful to staff because we submit plans and we have to follow those plans. And so those are the guardrails, and those will protect the interests of the public. Staff will have conditions. Our plans will be tied to these approvals. And those will ensure that we're not going to go build something different than what we're proposing right now. So those are the factors. I already talked about the bike lane. We were told to, make sure we were concise, but we're here to answer any questions and we appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, questions of the petitioner?
Yeah, I have a couple. Do you have an idea of the rent for the different units?
They will follow the market of Downers Grove. We've yet to conduct a full marketing study, but they will be adjacent to the nearby buildings.
Because
Hold on, Molly. We're not going to interrupt this portion of the meeting. We're going to, as soon as we wrap up questions here, we're going to go to the public and give each and every one of you an opportunity to come up to answer questions. But we ask that you hold back your comments and that type of thing while we go through our questions here. Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
well, why I'm asking is kind of ironically, in the same packet, we have the meeting minutes from one of the meetings about the attainable housing. And this is a reference guide for anybody who's going to speak tonight. You might want to flip through that because that's going to be a lot of the discussion, I believe. But one of the things that we've been discussing a lot is that the rents are too high, and the people can't. Younger people starting out can't buy a house, and then the rents are higher than actually paying a mortgage for a house, so they can't save. So is one of the goals for this development to play into that, to be not $2,500, $3,500 a unit?
I can't speak to that. We will be congruent with the surrounding rates. It is not my job as a developer to price units. Unfortunately, the market prices the demand. So as much as I'd like to make a statement tonight, I cannot until I have more information.
And do you have an idea on the schedule? If
On the scheduling of
if
the
everything goes
marketing, yeah, if we get a positive approval and we're working towards final plans, that will be conducted. Yes.
when would the first, when would something be open? When would it be ready then? A year, 2 years?
In terms of being able to provide a number, in terms of, we will have it at the board meeting. Following final approval, we should have those numbers available to us.
Chairman, I've got a couple of questions.
I just want to make sure you were.
Yeah, that's
No.
all.
Okay. Was there a public event that you guys had hosted to answer any questions or field any questions from the public? And can you kind of talk through that?
Absolutely. I do apologize. We actually did have a slide with the findings of the neighborhood meeting. We held an open house on the site on the 21st. We did 2 sessions, one just after lunch and one closer to the afternoon. We did provide notice to the surrounding property owners, 500 feet per village code ordinance. We did only have 2 people show up. One was a tenant of the building and another one was an individual who was working across the street at the atrium building. And no concerns were raised, no objections. They were positive questions and pertaining to the amenities, to building access, to unit makeup, that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions at this time for the petitioner?
Really quick on the timeline aspect. Once we have permit in hand after submitting, obviously after approvals, I would say from demolition to completion would be 18 months or less.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. I'm not sure who would answer it, but it has to do with parking. There's a recommendation in the staff report about possibly lowering parking count a little bit by about 40 spaces or so. Is that something, if you could maybe address that, is that something that's easily attainable or is that problematic or?
We were actually able to find those spaces at the behest of staff. We found them. They're visible on the spot. They were put into the plan after the fact. And those 40 spaces are actually along the northeastern property line. If you look, it's the top right spaces and they're actually labeled spaces repurposed. I'll let
Yeah.
Eric speak.
Yeah, it was requested to remove 40. We removed 48.
Okay, so that's already been adjusted.
Already been adjusted.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner, I've got a question regarding traffic.
Sure.
That's okay.
Sure.
I think you had mentioned that your analysis showed that a 75% reduction in overall traffic if the current building utilized as office space was at 100% occupancy compared to this residential or the proposed residential development at 100% capacity. And obviously there's some variances with how traffic would be generated between the two from office to residential. Can you talk a little bit about what your analysis fed into weekends? Because I would imagine that on the weekends, residential traffic would be either the same, maybe perhaps even more during weekday. Just wanted to see how that factored
Yes.
into your analysis.
So the analysis concentrated in the AM and the PM, but I can attest to your question. So just a couple of things, and I'm going to start by saying that probably the beauty of this development as where it's located is the fact that it's counter flow to what the office does. Office traffic in the morning is coming in, residential is going out. And then on the evening is the reverse. So they're not impacting or adding to what's already there in that direction. So there's good synergy between the uses. As it relates to the weekend traffic generation, whether it's on Saturday, typically residential developments, whether it's single family homes or whether it's, apartments or condominiums, they tend to generate slightly less during that peak hour that normally occurs anytime between 12 and 2 when people are just going either shopping or having lunch or whatever it might be, tends to be a little bit less than what you see during the peak hours, whether it's the morning or the PM. On top of that, typically traffic volumes, and we do have information because we have done a lot of work along this corridor, Downers Grove, and as well as Lombard. Traffic tends to be slightly lower than what it is during the PM peak hour. So lower traffic generation. So on the weekend, it would be or having a less impact. Would it generate more than an office building on the weekend? Absolutely. I will give you that because an office building doesn't generate that much traffic on the weekend. But the intersection has been built to accommodate substantially a lot of traffic. And this by no means is going to tip the scales, in such a way.
Thank you.
There are questions for the petitioner before we go to the
I've
public?
got one quick question. In regards to the construction, I see that you were mentioning vision glass being used. I'm wondering if you're putting in any precautions for birds or wildlife because you're so close to Lyman Woods there, which is a preserve. And so I'm wondering if there's anything being installed to prevent any collisions.
So at this time, we're only providing potentially tinted glass, but not laminated or fritted glass, if you're saying, to deter bird flight.
Typically, it's just a film that's applied to the windows to create a bit of a pattern so they can recognize it, but just
Not at this time, no.
recommendation. Thank you.
Anything else for the petitioner? Okay, we're gonna move into the public testimony portion of the meeting at this time. Just a reminder, we'd ask that just because of the number of people here, that you'd respect the 5-minute rule. And this is an opportunity for you really to make comments, either pro or against, or your thoughts on the application, ask questions. We're not going to provide answers in real time. We want to get through everybody, get all the comments and questions out there. And then between the staff report and the petitioner's rebuttal, we'll kind of address the points that have come up, but not responding to them in real time. This is just an opportunity to provide input. So at this time, if there's anybody who'd like to speak at the public hearing, there's not a sign-in list or anything, just kind of make your way, up to the podium. And if you can just start for the record, if you could just give your name for the record, and then the floor is yours. Good evening.
Yeah, I basically wrote my comments as they were speaking.
Can we get your name for the?
My name is Fahim Shadid. I live at 1210 Gregory Place in Downers Grove, and we can see the buildings from our house. So the questions I have and comments, was there a study about the additional traffic in Downers Grove, especially adding a light at 35th Street and Highland due to the increased traffic by the population of the new buildings? Already, as you know, 2 individuals died as a result of an accident at the intersection. The new project will add to the hazard at that intersection. This should be the base, in my opinion, of any development and zoning. Another one, what is the financial future obligation of the village? What's the village giving to the developers? Will our taxes be increased as a result of the new development? Will there be any future rezoning of other buildings? You know, it's not just these buildings. That area is full of other buildings. And similar meeting will probably occur, and you guys will probably have to think about it before allowing the rezoning. Also, the effect of this development on the Downers Grove School District. You know, whether it's kindergarten or junior high or high school, North High especially. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, before we get to the next person, just for the petitioner, I'm trying to keep a running list of points that come up. If you could do the same, and that might influence your response when you get the opportunity. Between the two of us, we'll try to pick up all the themes of comments that have come up here. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Judy, and I am a resident of Innisbrook, which is the subdivision immediately west of 1020 31st Street, and my concerns are many. I will admit that I have delved into hundreds of pages of both this building's zoning appeal process, as well as the hundreds of pages of guiding DG principles since learning of this issue. This is just a sample of the stuff I printed out. I want to begin by saying that this zoning approval process and criteria was flawed. Notification, for one, was flawed. Properties were only notified if they were within 500 feet of this building. There is not a single neighbor within 500 feet of this building. And yet, to the west of this building is Innisbrook. To the south is Mistwood, Johnson Woods, and Orchard Brook. To the east is Orchard Brook Colony and Gingerbrook. None of these residents were notified. I personally contacted your liaison and requested the 11 mailings and what the addresses were to which this notification was sent, and I have not received it yet. I will say that the open house that was held, which none of us knew about, was held on a Thursday, which, as a building management people would know, if you work from home, you're going to work from home Monday and Friday. You go to the office Tuesday through Thursday. A Thursday open house is not accessible. Even if the residents were notified, they would not be able to attend. And if they were home, a 12 to 1 or 3 to 4 timing would interfere with a stay-at-home mom who may have half-day children at school to pick up, or 3 to 4 when you would pick up the remaining end-of-the-day students. The traffic study you were presented with, while maybe interesting, maybe helpful, only applies to people coming and going for work. This is not going to be an office building, it's going to be residential. If people are working from home, they may come and go at different times because they're not leaving for work between 7 and 9 a.m. or returning at 4 to 6. In addition, they are not accounting for weekends. They are not accounting for evenings. I live there. I can tell you when I come and go out of my subdivision, and it is exactly those times. Finally, the hearing signs you required of them to display were on 31st Street, parallel to 31st Street in front of the building, not visible when driving into the office park and approaching the building. And yet the building sign itself is on an angle facing 31st Street. The other sign was parallel to Highland Avenue and was not visible other than, it basically was parallel to Highland Avenue and set back at the I-88 on-ramp to Highland Avenue, which becomes a 5-lane southbound situation of people merging to turn either left, right, or go straight with very little square footage or feet before entering 31st Street intersection. Okay, I've had my piece. Finally, well, not finally, in addition to the process, the criteria is also flawed. I will tell you that this building does not fit the existing use or zoning of nearby properties. You'll note when this exact point was cited by the property, they failed to mention any of the subdivisions around them. They only referred to other office buildings to their west and to their south. It will affect property values of neighboring properties, as these will be renters, not owners. This will not be a condo. These will be rentals. It is not suitable and is out of scale in terms of population to the surrounding neighborhood. We do not have this kind of density in our subdivisions surrounding this building. And it does not maintain the character of the surrounding community. We are not high density. Mistwood only has 125 units over the course of 25 buildings. We do not have 184 units anywhere. Finally, the arguments against this zoning change are simple. And in fact, the arguments that the village made against the State of Illinois' Build Act are similar to mine. The zoning standards will ultimately override community-based planning that limit the ability to align development to local conditions and resident input. If we're prioritizing high density, and in your case, you're saying affordable, although they're saying market rate, and my question is market rate to whom? Is it going to be subsidized and market rate to them, but not market rate to the public? That needs to be clarified. Second, uncertain affordability outcomes. If you do put higher density housing in, higher density alone will not guarantee lower housing costs as you desire, which are largely driven by land, labor, materials, and financing. Cost shifting. If you do make this affordable housing, what will be the financial burdens that follow with growth and affordability to existing taxpayers? Neighborhood impacts. Potential redevelopment of existing properties will affect community character and housing stability. Infrastructure strain. Increased density could outpace capacity for utilities, roads, schools, and emergency services. And finally, residential density will appear to be a matter of course without regard to the impact of the unique nature of the communities that are surrounding it. These are the arguments our village used against the State of Illinois against the Build Act. In other words, Downers Grove doesn't want another governing body to tell them where higher density housing can occur, as they will find it inappropriate to be all over town. But yet Downers Grove wants to ignore my neighborhood and put high density housing next to my home, where high density and affordable housing are inappropriate for the current character of the neighborhood. I'm curious why Downers Grove would in any way prioritize those who currently do not live here, will not be taxpayers, nor have long-term vested interest in our community over the current tax-paying residents. And finally, if the village can change the zoning for our neighboring office park building, what will happen to the remaining offices and properties that are adjacent? A precedent will have been set with the commission's decision and will make any effort to put future high-value, low-density properties, especially residential ownership properties, such as condos, townhomes, or additional single-family homes, an impossible one. Thank you.
My name is Joanne Patton.
One second. it's clear that a lot of you are in agreement with what was said there, but I'd ask that you please don't do that. It's going to delay and drag it on. We want to make sure everybody gets the opportunity. You know, if you want to come up and say you're in complete agreement with that speaker, that's fine, but we want to try to keep the applause or anything in agreement or negative, you know, publicly or in that matter, to not do that. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Joanne Patton, and I've lived on Venard Road for 36 years. We have no sanitary sewer in my section of the street. Bel Air School behind me has no storm sewer in the ground. It flows down into that pit that they put on Drove Avenue in Bel Air, and it has no sanitary sewer. And it's a sodden mess. To this building would put not 90, we don't know how many children could be living there. And Bel Air School is the district for that area, as well as for part of Oak Brook. That school, cannot accommodate another 100 students, much less another 200. Highland School is also overcrowded. So we're looking at a tremendous burden. And you can't really build onto Bel Air unless you're going to do a sewer project. So I would say that right there, the burden on the grade school alone is going to be very, very difficult to surmount. I'm sorry for everybody who invested in commercial real estate. It has taken a turn, times have changed. But the answer is not to put the burden on our community. We also need to look at the devastating impact on Lyman Woods, which is a very important feature of Downers Grove. All the children in every school go there and learn. All the YMCA camp goes there. It's a huge feature of our community. And when you're going to convert across the street from them, and you're going to have fire pit and pickleball and badminton, you're going to have action over there night and day. Noise, traffic, parties on the balcony. It's a disruption to Lyman Woods on all of those levels. Garbage level, it's going to be devastating. Noise level, nighttime, lights. It will decimate what little bit is left of Lyman Woods after more than half of it was taken for the Good Samaritan Health Club that nobody goes to. So that's all I have to say is the schools in Lyman Woods and on top of what this lady has said.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name's Paul Scouten. I'm a resident of the Mistwood subdivision, but I moved into Downers Grove back in June of 1990. And I've watched the changes that have come through this community over those years. And I remember coming and talking with Betty Cheever, who is now enshrined in the name of this building. And I always felt that the village and the village government were the friends of the residents. And at this point, I ask myself, who benefits from this development? Why is the village part of a program to try to save a property owner who bought a commercial building at a discount because it was mainly vacant and now wants to redevelop it to the detriment of the surrounding neighborhoods? We don't need an increase in density in population. If you look, and I know all of you have seen how the residential areas near the downtown specifically have had high-rise developments that have brought in more congestion, more residents, more demands for services. But those were all in residential areas. So now we're saying, are we going to convert office space to more residential areas? And the comments made by Judy and by the woman who spoke just before me, I reaffirm them and strongly ask the village and all of you to consider, who are you helping? You're not helping the residents. You're helping a commercial property owner try to find a way out of saving a commercial building whose time has passed. And that's not the function of this government. It's not the function of this body. It's not a benefit for any of the residents that have appeared here tonight and have talked about this issue, mostly the ones that I have heard from saying, when did they publish the notice for this? And that's the thing that I would most strongly reaffirm from Judy's comments is that this notice didn't meet statutory requirements and it shouldn't even have progressed to this point. That's all I want to say, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sharon Altier. I've been a resident of Downers Grove for about 31 years. I'm in the Mistwood subdivision for that whole time. And I've been there when it was nice and quiet. And as Highland got busier and busier, it's become an issue, but we've been dealing with it. Obviously, there is a traffic issue right now, presently. The speeders there are insane. I would love to see you guys put a ticketing radar gun there if you can, because if you're going to get any more traffic, it will become more of a problem. Getting out of that subdivision sometime is, especially during peak hours, is a little bit difficult. I as well would say that with many of my Mistwood neighbors, we did not receive a notice of any kind of hearing, and we would have shown up. We would have definitely shown up for that. So that's very disappointing that that didn't happen. And obviously with 2 attendees and knowing most of the neighbors, there's no way more of us would not have shown up. Again, my concerns with traffic, I agree with all the other speakers as well so far about it. We were also informed by someone who's a demolition company that 3,200 Etna building is coming down starting July and it'll be finished by November. They just spoke to the owner of that company the other day. So we're sort of surprised that we don't know about that. I guess my concern is also the price points for those and what percent will be affordable housing. And is there going to be any kind of age, like over 55? What is specifically it designed for? Being in real estate, I can tell you what we really need are condos, luxury homes, luxury townhouses as well, but we need condos. You'll see it's a very small amount of properties on the market right now, and that's what we do need. I could tell you from the rentals over at Yorktown and Lombard there, I could get anyone in any time. And I do, because there's a lot of vacancies. So I'm not sure, I was a little surprised by it becoming apartments. And I'm just wondering, is the idea then to build apartments and then sold it off for condos at some point in time? I haven't read up enough about it. I just actually heard about this last minute. So unfortunately, I'm not as prepared as I'd like to be. So I apologize for that. Is it going to be company management over those apartments after they build those? And my concern is also the housing needs study. What exactly has been studied with that of why they're seeing apartments being in need for that, particularly for that area? You've got higher homes prices in that area, and certainly everyone enjoys their retirement and their homes there. And we do feel very strongly that this would be a detriment to the housing market there. And being in real estate, like I say, it will be. I would suggest strongly condos and investigating that, why that would not be an option. And I don't quite understand how this is going to help public health. I really don't get how apartments are going to help public health. Bike lanes, I know were funded over 5 years ago. I spoke actually out in DuPage County at a hearing, and our councilman actually, it got approved, and I've never seen it happen. So I'm hoping that is really coming to fruition at some point in time. But right now with the traffic, unless it's addressed on Highland at 31st, I actually think you would have a problem, and it would be seriously dangerous for anyone to put in a bike lane at this point in time. The gentlemen who, or the people, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say gentlemen, the people, the bikers who do the race in the summer usually used to be using Highland as a practice. They don't do it anymore. I don't even see the racers anymore. Like I said, I've been there 31 years, and it's been happening a couple of years because it's simply too fast of drivers on Highland. And I would also have another question regarding how the residents here, how it would affect our residential tax assessments as well. And that's all I have for you now. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Mike Hines. I live at 1231 Gregory Place, which is in Innisbrook to the west of the development that's planned. I just have one question that I haven't heard yet tonight. We talked about traffic flow out onto Highland. I think there's some concern from our neighbors that you will put a thoroughfare through from Saratoga and the curve onto Vennard through the backside towards the west. And we want to make sure that doesn't happen, or that would be a huge concern for the Innisbrook neighborhood there directly west of the development, those parking lots. And And that's really my only question. Also, thank you for your work on this as commissioners in the town. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Good evening.
Evening. My name is Steve Smolin. I live in Mistwood. And I want to say that I don't know any of these people here. I'm really disappointed that we just learned of this project within the last week. But I also want to suggest that I've worked on distressed asset all across the country in commercial real estate for most of the last 40 years. And I think it's very important that you be careful about what might end up there if you don't do this project. And I want to make clear, I'm not advocating for the project. I haven't made a decision on it myself. I don't have an opinion. But I do have a strong concern about a hulking metal thing standing there rusting for decades, as I've seen in so many places across the country. The people have very valid concerns, but they also need to be careful what they wish for. And they could end up with something a lot worse than the proposed project. And again, I want to say, I don't know these people and I haven't made up my mind. But it's very important to consider the other side, not just what we don't like about this, but what could happen at that site if we don't address it.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good. Hi, my name is Amy King-Carr, and I just also heard about this Saturday. So I have some information, but we didn't have a ton of time to research this. So I'm an Orchard Brooks resident. I have 2 kids. I have a 10-year-old that's over at Bel Air right now, which is overflowing, by the way. It's an open concept school in case you guys haven't been there. Right now, we have 28 kids, 1 teacher. I walk in there half the time. The kids are on their desks. They're talking to their friends. There's not any room in that school. The desks are right up next to each other, and I have pictures if you want to see it. So we have no more room. Unless you want to demo that school, there's not any more room for these kids. Additionally, I have 2 kids that have dyslexia, and before the pads came into the neighborhood, if you were 40% or less, you were able to get assistance. It went down to 30%. Now we're down to 25%. If we have 100, 200 more kids coming into Bel Air, what's the number going to be? 5%? I mean, my husband and I are paying $2,000 a month to help our kids. Not everybody can afford that. And having more kids coming into our school district is a big issue. We respectfully request that you deny the petition's request for a positive recommendation to rezone the subject property. When analyzing the property of any zoning classification, the existing use and zoning of the surrounding property is of paramount importance. Gunderson First Village of Hinsdale. In this case, the petitioner is proposing a rezone the subject property to B2 PUD General Retail Business Plan Unit Development without any retail use being incorporated into the development. Being exclusively residential, the petitioner should be seeking a rezoning to the R6 residential apartment condo classification. Use of the residential zoning classification, however, would necessitate any admission that the proposed zoning and use is wholly different from the existing zoning and uses of nearby properties. In fact, there are no properties in the immediate area that are zoned or used residentially. The petitioner should not be allowed to find similarity to B2 and B3 zone properties in the area under these circumstances. Allowing the rezoning could constitute illegal spot zoning. There is no evidence that the current zoning classification and adversely affecting the property value of the subject property or any other similarity zone property. If that were the case, we would expect to see other similarity zone properties in the area experiencing diminishes in value and making efforts to change their zoning classifications. That is not the case. Irrespective of the above, there is no benefit to the public health, safety, and welfare in permitting such an intense residential use in the middle of an office park. The subject property is not suited for residential purposes, as evidenced by the significant modification to the exterior and interior that must be made to accommodate the conversion. Further, the petitioners cannot actually use the existing structure for proposed use without receiving multiple and very significant variations from the zoning code, including 68% variance from the required 25 parking setback on the north, 24% variance over from the maximum permitted floor area ratio, 0.75%, and 135% variance over the 35 maximum height limitation in the zoning district. Additionally, there is no evidence that the current zoning of the subject property is improper or not marketable. In fact, other office buildings in the area continue to be occupied by new tenants. I actually worked for Travelers Insurance, and I'm very good friends with the vice president of Travelers, and they recently moved in across the street. So it is still profitable. People are still going, they need to collaborate, they need to brainstorm. And so they are still looking for office space, which is evident with the Travelers building, which is across the street, which moved in a year and a half ago. Travelers Insurance, like I said, recently occupied the Highland Landmark 3 building on 31st Street is an example of the continued visibility of the office research zoning classification in the area. Although there may be some value to have residential units available for rent in a community, it makes little sense to inundate the north end of the village with those uses. The north end of the village has an approximate mix of single-family, duplex, and multifamily housing. Indeed, there is a large offering of residential rental units already in existence northwest of Ogden and Highland. It should be noted that the state of Illinois has proposed a statewide scheme, currently known as BUILD Act, to address affordable housing that is proposed to be constituted or considered by the Illinois General Assembly next session. Approval of the petitioner's use without an understanding of how the legislation will affect the village should be short-sighted. There is a concern that the existing schools, like I said, will not be able to accommodate additional students without expansion or more likely lowering educational standards, which has already been done. The subject property is within the Bel Air Elementary School area. Bel Air is an open concept institute that is already too small to accommodate existing students, let alone students from the development. The impact fee to be paid for the developer will do nothing to mitigate the effects the additional students from the development will have on Bel Air. And I want to add that we are now going to be moving all of our sixth graders to Herrick next year because we've already ran out of space in our elementary schools. So we had to do construction to build a bigger middle school. So we wouldn't have done that if we weren't already having issues. Indeed, it is likely that the values for determining the developer in lieu of contribution are far low and outdated when considering the accessibility of the subject property from the interstate and the desirability of the Downers Grove School. Finally, traffic from the subject property to Bel Air will pass through Orchard Brook subdivision, creating hazards for those that are living in that community, such as my family. The proposed rezoning does not comply with the village comprehensive plan in the most fundamental way possible. The comprehensive plan designates the future land use for the subject property as office. Downers Grove Comprehensive Plan, page 45. The current zoning of the subject property complies with the comprehensive plan. Any deviation therefrom will create a conflict, notably the village adopted its comprehensive plan in August of 2025 and did not alter its vision for the subject property at that time. We respectfully ask that you consider the above points that I discussed in hopes that we don't recommend the rezoning of this property. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Hello, I'm Ben Kimsa. I live on the 3200 block of the Drew Street. I live a few blocks west of this property being considered for the rezoning. Your traffic study appears to me to be flawed, that it considers only the car traffic People don't use just cars. They walk around. They need parks. The kids need a place to play. And none of those things are reflected in your traffic study. And none of these changes that you suggested add any amenities for outdoor activities. All they are doing is take a parking lot and convert to a pickleball court. Is that all? Look at their balconies. Hardly two people can stand on their balcony and they consider them as outdoor access. People want to bike. People want to walk around. People want parks, and Downers Grove has taken pride in having an outdoor outspace for the family to grow. And this high density that we are putting in, this building is being cheaply converted into the residential unit. It doesn't add any character to the community. All it does is these owners will just cash out and disappear. And what happened to the whole area? Whole area meaning just the 31st Street block. We have 5 other buildings waiting. Office complexes are going through trouble. We know that. It takes time. We have to wait. Office Park have worked in this area for 30, 40 years. We need to time. These guys just want to cheaply buy this thing, convert it into a condo, and dump everything on us. Just think about it. We have an existing apartment complex on Apprentice Drive near the 63rd and the Belmont Avenue. How many police calls we get from them? How many fire calls we get from them? And even that complex is not as dense as this complex that they are proposing. Here you are putting in one office building, you are putting 184 families, cramming them in and giving them outdoor space, probably little more than this desk, and call it a balcony. I mean, just think about it. This is a very high density project. What we need is we need a bigger community input, not just this kind of a community input. You give us one opportunity to say we are going to approve it. Look at the sham they did when they have an open house. One guy showed up. One other guy was their own member. And we call it a community outreach. The question to this community is very simple. Do we want Cabrini Greens in the north side of a Downers Grove? Do we want something like Cabrini Green? Do we want to say that we will approve this 184 unit and allow other building to be like that, and we have no say in it, and our say is just, hey, one meeting, come and tell us? We need a deeper community input here. Community need to understand what we are getting into it. This is not just a simple question of, hey, do we have 50 cars going in and 50 cars coming out and our traffic study? This is all fake. But our traffic studies is enough. Where are those 150 family going on weekends for a walk? Where are they going on a bike? Where are these, let us say in this family there are 50 kids. Where are these kids going to play? I'm sorry that we need a deeper community input for such a transformative, such a dense project. Probably in Downers Grove currently, we do not have any apartment building or any area that is so dense as this. Even this downtown buildings, I mean, downtown fits the character of this kind of a building, not the 3100 blocks, right in the next, just imagine, right next to the office building, you are putting in 184 unit apartment building at a market rate. They can't even commit that this won't be a subsidized house. I'm sorry, they are looking for a cheap way out. And our Downers Grove government do not need to subsidize this kind of an activity. This is not a commercial activity that benefits Downers Grove. It doesn't meet our character. The Downers Grove is known as a family raising thing. And we have put a lot of effort, money, resources to build this community. Don't let just outsider come in and just dump the 184 family, walk out after 2 years, and then we ask us, what do we do now? I think community need a deeper understanding. We do not have an infrastructure for this kind of high density, and this density could increase if this zoning is allowed. In Downers Grove North, we have 10, 15 other buildings. They need to work hard to get the tenants. Other office buildings are getting tenant. I understand it is difficult, but they need to work at it. And we had that vision at 30 years ago that this is our office and research complex. Other community has it. They are able to sustain it. We should be able to sustain it too. Maybe it is a little harder for a few years. We don't need to jump in too quickly to say that, hey, let's just permit them these cheap modifications, and so that we can dump and cash out within 2 years of ROI. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Sorry, I had a gum in my mouth. Took it out. I made some notes, but I've been, I moved into the area, but my name is Walker Sakawi. I'm at 3225 Venard Road, just about a block away from that intersection and that, I would say, road into the complex. I worked in 1999 at R.R. Donnelly when it was 3275 Highland Avenue, I think, or something like that. Those 3 buildings, now it's 4. And it was wonderful. Going in and out from the highway was great. So we decided to buy a house there, and that we did because we're highly density in Chicago. We thought this is the place where we could raise our children, less movement, easy living, and a little bit less headache. And it's right there, very nice to walk around with the children. So we moved away, and now we are coming to have a lot high density within our neighborhood. We're about 2 blocks, maybe a block and a half, that is city wise. So from that particular location. And when you think about it, I travel that area a lot. And, if you are living there, you move a lot. You go to the grocery, it comes out that twice, right? So if you do about 4 or 5, you go to the gym and come back, which I do. That's 4 times. You traverse that area really quickly. 184 units times 2 or 3 per unit, just in an average, you're looking at about 500 and 600. And those people move around 4 to 6 times a day. That is significant traffic. Nevertheless, the lanes are not configured correctly there. If you're coming from, say, Oak Brook on 31st Street from the east going west, and you're hitting that traffic sign with ends by Highland, you are turning left to go into our subdivision because that's the only way to get in, which is 31st Street. So what you see there is only 1 lane going into that complex, that research complex. If there is about any of us, and I remember just like today, there's about 6, 7 cars turning left, 2 lanes, and there is about 1 or 2 cars going straight, which is where Parker's is. So you could imagine this is going to go way out there, try to get in because they don't want to come in from the Butterfield area coming in. So I looked at the traffic pattern for the past couple of days because that's the only time I learned about that building that was supposed to be 184 units. My neighbors was walking around, hey, do you hear about this? This is what's happening. Monday is going to be, that was a Friday afternoon conversation. So I walk my dog a lot around that area. So I said, let's go take a walk and see what's going on with the signs. So just like what Judy said, that's exactly what the sign was by the I-88, angled in a such way that anybody traversing that area, which we are this way going south, which is where the schools are, where the shopping, the Jewel and all this stuff, that's where our major traffic. Nobody saw that. So it was deliberate by these guys, right? Whoever's doing it, not to show it that is something's going on in that area. So that's what's my concern. The other concern is how it's like, I really loved what the previous gentleman said. Traffic is great, which I addressed it, but traffic by foot. When I'm bored, right, I work from home, right? And that's a good thing that I have to mention is that I walk my dog, right? And I walk around. So people who walk and say half of them work from home will walk around with the dogs or whatever, right? It's significant. I've seen those buildings when they are still not 100% full, they walk into our subdivision and I see them going, walking around during lunchtime, which is significant, right? You know, to trying to get out. Could you imagine that's happening with 600 people there? That's what's going to happen. We have some couple parks is going to be impacted. It looks like more studies needs to be done because that influx is going to impact our community tremendously. And the other one is talking about a lot of people working from home, you know, the lawyer here representing. That's great, yes. But have you seen what's going on lately? My wife was working from home 100% of the time, which I was too. So when I got a new job, it's still remote, right? But my wife got a new job after being laid off for a year. One day in the office when she started, 2 days, and now she's 4 days, Monday through Thursday. And I pick her up from the train station right here. And that's the traffic pattern, right? And now she's back. I look at the train who's coming in, tons of people coming out, in and out, right? So a lot of companies now requiring people to come to the office, and significant amount of them are, and you could see it, in the traffic. So I don't buy that, everybody's working from home situation actually is going to accelerate because my office building downtown, which is our headquarters, I'm one of the executives that could work from home. I go to the office. We have increased our capacity, and Governor Brisker wants to, tax us on how many people are on there. One of the proposed, right? So there's a lot of this stuff is happening to get back to the office. The other one is I want to discuss is that, a lot of building, a lot of investment went into corporate offices, huge campuses. I worked for GE. They made huge campuses and all this stuff for prestige or for clout. And things has changed. Things got smaller. Things got, distributed. So some distress stuff like this happens, but cannot be part of our responsibility here to take on the burden of investments when bad, right? We like to be more deliberate into designing a community that is where a bunch of us here moved from the cities to this community to escape high density and to allow more space for us to because we invest in our community to really enjoy it. And at the same time, I like what everybody said in here is that if it was condos, and that's, simple things, right? A lot of people has, investment into that property and they understand, some of the norms and the conditions that they abide with. And clearly would be something that will practice because they own something and the investment is whatever they put in it, they're going to get. So safety is going to happen. And then I want to address finally the last point here is that, my wife, I see it on the ring a lot, all those Amazons coming in and out from there. So about 10, maybe 10 to 12 a week, Amazon people, show up with that. And several times you have the mail person there, UPS person there, and they're fighting how to get to our, driveway because that's when I deliver. So I laugh at it and I see them coming in and out, together sometimes, right? And they are dodging each other, trying to find a spot, to deliver. Could you imagine 600 times 10 a week? Whatever per household, right? You can imagine that traffic pattern is going to be. I'm talking about normal living style. And at the same time, I had an argument with my wife the other day, right? And we had, an argument, normal argument. We have been married for a long time. So things like this is going to happen.
Hold on 1 sec. You're way over the 5-minute mark.
Oh, I am sorry about that.
Hold on. I'm not going to cut you off.
I'm done with that.
We don't want to hear about spousal arguments and things. We want to talk about the case that's in front of us in the petition. So
Absolutely. So what I'm saying is here is that arguments happen and there's domestic abuse happens, right? I'm not saying that happens in my house, no, but I'm saying normal arguments happen, and you're not counting for all of this stuff is going to happen in 184 housing is going to happen. So what happened is that I heard a lot from different apartment buildings that the police is always there, the paramedics is always there, and boyfriends are not slashing cars and all this stuff. That has not really been addressed here. So that's my last point. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Michael O'Brien, 1391 Hickory Court. I agree with everything Judy said, but my main 3 points are I have a 5 and 6 year old in Bel Air Elementary. It's already overcrowded. There's not room for a high density project. It will overflow the school. So that's point one. Point two is we don't want high density. We have really good character. My kids walk around the neighborhood. It's really made for families. And if we put a high density project, the traffic, as he said, people walk from the office buildings all the time. It will just turn our community into what we don't want. And I asked you guys, we heard about this yesterday. I did. The communication was subpar by them, or whoever did it. Really just, you see everyone in this room coming together, hearing about it over the weekend. We care about our community. We invest in our community. We want the best for our community. And I don't think anyone agrees with this being the best for Downers Grove. So I asked you guys to reject it. Thank you.
Good evening.
My name is George Vesely. I live in Mistwood. And as most of the people have said this evening, they found out about this in a week or less. I heard about it for the first time last Thursday. And yet this must have been going on for quite a lot of time, but it's on your agenda for a decision tonight. So how long has this dialogue process been going on between these folks and the community? And how is it that the information, or has the information been brought back to the community? And if so, in what shape or form? The pamphlets that come out from Downers Grove to talk about the things that are going on, I don't remember seeing anything noted in those at all. So what's the means of Downers Grove communicating back to all of us and all of the rest of the people about such an event that brought this many people out, just hearing something in the last 5 days to a week? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Latsudis. I'm the second closest house to the building, 3109 Bernard Road. And if you were to ultimately try to put a road from 31st Street all the way through to Saratoga, my house is the house you would see first. So I would greatly reinforce, if you're going to make the decision to approve this zoning, defining the zoning, I would hope that you would at least put that not in the plans so that they cannot come back and do that later on. The second point, I don't want to rehash it as everyone else, but I found out about this Friday night, and how somebody's got to change the rule of that 500 feet, because that makes no sense. I mean, nobody knew about their open house or whatever, and yet I'm the second closest house to that building, and we had no idea what was going on. So the lack of communication from the village to us, I read the Friday afternoon email from you guys every Friday. I've been a 40-year resident there at that house. So please redefine that rule to make sure that proper communication gets back to the residents of a major decision like this. And I hope you do, when look at the major decision, look at the cost, the risk of the cost to the neighborhoods and to the people versus the benefit to the village in the long run. Because I don't see that happening anywhere here. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else who would like to speak at the public hearing for this item?
Hi, my name is Vesna. I've been a resident of Downers Grove. I live in Innisbrook for 15 years. I just want you guys to also consider the number within a probably 2-mile radius of where this building is, the number of other rental units that are already there, townhouses that have gone up. We are part of the Yorktown tax assessment in our area. So I believe that that's all kind of lumped in the same, some of the same rates that we have. And they have done a lot of building. So I just don't know that there is really a need for such a high density project in addition to everything else that's been going on. I realize some of that is Lombard, but I think that should also be taken into consideration.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Tom. I'm like many of the people here. I'm a 30-plus year resident of Downers Grove. Currently live in the Innisbrook neighborhood, about 2 blocks west of the planned development. We've lived in our house for 25 years. You can see a lot of our neighbors have invested in our community and have lived there 30. We've some of the original owners who lived there 40-plus years. We originally bought it in a condo in the downtown area, the one by Fischel Park, and we fell in love with the Downers Grove area. We looked for a quiet neighborhood to raise our children in. So we moved to the north end of Downers Grove in Innisbrook, which is effectively a dead-end neighborhood. It's not connected to anything right now in the north. They've mentioned this bike path. There is no bike path there right now. There's nothing connecting the office park to our neighborhood. We raised 2 kids in our neighborhood. Best thing about our area and the Downers Grove in general is the high number of long-term homeowners who are active in the community and have a vested interest in the high community standards for the strength of the neighborhoods, the quality of the schools, and the availability of parks, activities, and programs. I'm not going to rehash everything everyone said, but if you're talking up to 90 kids, those kids would all go to Bel Air Elementary School, the way the current school map is. And we have little neighborhood schools. You guys would be aware of that. One school could not handle the influx of all these children. So currently my neighborhood, which again is like 700 feet to the west of this, so just outside the 500 feet, is all single family homes. Mistwood, you see the number of residents from there, approximately 600 feet to the south, I believe is their closest. What I'd like to point out is Mistwood is 125 units in 25 buildings. This single building would have more units than Mistwood by a large margin. And as far as I could find doing searches and stuff this weekend, again, sorry I didn't have enough time for more research. This 184 unit building would be the largest single unit building in Downers Grove by number of units. I think they're, sorry, a little dry here. I think there are some complexes that might be bigger, but those were, multiple buildings planned by a developer. So by density alone, this apartment complex dramatically changes the character of the surrounding area. It shifts us from nearly 100% owned to something, I'm guessing here, because I didn't count every house, like a quarter renters. And to respond to what the gentleman said about the distressed commercial property, it can go either way. You can have a commercial property sit, but if we approve a 184 unit apartment building, that sets a precedent in this office complex. We could end up with 500 or 800 apartments there. And then you're talking about you flipped the character of our area from majority homeowners to majority renters. So right now on nights and weekends, the office park doesn't generate any traffic. It's generally quiet. It's dark. This will obviously all change if there are cars there 24/7 instead of just coming during the business day and leaving. I would note that it also changes the traffic patterns. You've got right now, someone talked about the intersection there. Most of the cars are either coming from the east, from the Oak Brook direction, or they're going north-south on Highland. Other than Parkers, very few cars are turning in to that intersection. If you increase traffic flow from the west coming out of this office park at all times of the day, you're probably going to have to change the light timing, which is then going to have a much greater traffic impact than what may be represented, on the traffic study. Also, as has been mentioned, with people renting this building, when they want to go for a walk, when they want to walk their dog, ride their bike, they're in the middle of an office park. So they're going to have to go over to Innisbrook, and if they want to go more than a block or two. We have a tiny little neighborhood park that's basically landlocked by houses, Northside Park. It's got like 4 swings. There certainly is not, capacity there for the number of people that might want to use that park. And, as I mentioned before, we're also not even connected. Those people would have to cross until the bike path would be put in, they'd have to cross, dirt, gravel. There's actually a chain link fence blocking what used to be a path there. And we also assume this would decrease our property values, because if you put one building in, what's to stop the next person? Because right now the zoning commission, you're looking at a situation where there are no high density buildings in this area. Once there is one, well, now the character of the neighborhood has changed. We no longer are primarily low density housing. So you put 2 or 3 or 4 of these buildings in, what happens to the, people coming into our neighborhood for walks? What happens to the load on our park? What happens to the load on Bel Air School? So I feel like this is the wrong kind of development. Someone mentioned the condos. I feel like this is the easy way out. They're taking an existing building and trying to repurpose the foundation and the structure. I don't know. Have we looked at, multiple smaller buildings? Has any other development option been considered here other than buying a commercial building under value, converting to residential, filling it up, and getting out? I actually worked for a real estate company in the 90s that bought a bunch of apartment complexes out of the S&L crisis, fixed them up, filled them up, and sold them. And it was a quick hit for $1. Didn't really, like that business model. But anyway, I've tried to cut myself off here. I'm just, as a last comment, I'm just upset that the village's own long-range plan talks about preserving the character of our neighborhoods, and yet willingly promotes future renters over the very long-term homeowners that have invested in Downers Grove and built this neighborhood character that we're trying so hard to preserve. I encourage you to vote no on this and any other future conversion to residential in this specific office park. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Lynn La Palermo and I live in Mistwood, and I'm going to make this real quick, but I kind of want to reiterate what this last gentleman just said. I've lived here for 27 years. You've listened to all these people talk about how long we've lived here. We have pride in Downers Grove and we love being residents, and you have people that came out here to raise their children. This proposed idea is just the beginning, because they are tearing down the Aetna building starting July 15th next to Mistwood. They are ripping that building down. They haven't told anybody yet what's going in there. You guys don't even know, but they're planning on putting it up for sale. So they're tearing that building down. So those office buildings are coming down because obviously they're not making them enough money. This is just the beginning. If you're going to build something that is reminiscent of Downers Grove. Build residents, build over 65 community, an upscale over 65 community. Oakbrook homeowners, Hinsdale homeowners that have want to size down on their homes. They're always looking to come into something smaller, like a townhome or a condo. People that have vested interest in Downers Grove. And the last thing I'm going to say is the research that I did on the company that is supposed to be doing the maintenance and management of this company. Go online and look at their Yelp reviews. They sound like a slumlord. They talk about rats. They talk about dirt. They talk about bad building and all these kind of things. The reputation is not good. So please, before you make a decision on this, please do your homework, because the residents of Downers Grove care about the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Donna Lawley. I live in the Orchard Brook subdivision. I've lived here since 1985. My daughter, because she loved the area, lives a block away from me. So all of the above, what everybody have said, I completely agree with. But I want to pose a question to you. What do you see is the advantage of having a 184 unit rental building overcrowding our area? What do you see is an advantage for our village? Anybody? What's the advantage?
You're not going to get a response. This is the opportunity for you to share your comments. We're going to talk afterwards once we get through everything.
Okay, please consider that, because this is not in the best interest of Downers Grove. The reason why so many people live here. This is overcrowding. I don't want to repeat what everybody said, but you get my gist. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Christy Barbaro. I live at 4712 Sealy Avenue. I am not in the neighborhood right next to where this building is being proposed. I previously lived in Orchard Brook, so I come to the table living in Orchard Brook previously and now have stayed in Downers Grove. I do agree with most comments that have been brought up previously. One of the things with the schools, I know that we did a traffic study in the town of Downers Grove. You don't need to have a school study, is not required. I think that that would be a good study to have based on adding 90 students to Bel Air. Bel Air also, as we know, is an open concept school, and also with North High School, there is not any room to expand at North. We would have to take down the football field. There's no more room at North. So having this property on the north end, these children would have to go somewhere. We also know that in 2022, Downers Grove School District increased their transportation costs from $3.4 million to $6.7 million due to the IHC housing that was on the north end of the city also. So the cost to the school district and accommodating these students on the north end, to me, seems complicated in the fact that there is no room for more students. Currently in Orchard Brook, there is up on the board for just no rentals within Orchard Brook itself. They do have an HOA. So just the Orchard Brook community does feel that they don't want rentals in their own community, let alone that they want a big increased housing development next to their community. Another point that was brought up was that there is not room, there's what use for this space. We know that Lori's Children's is going to be coming. Someone found land for them to come into Downers Grove. They have research. They're going to bring more office space. Northwestern is downtown. I used to work for them. They rent out many office buildings that are not just their own campus. So we know that Lori's Children's is coming. They're going to need office space. Also, Midwestern University is adding on to a veterinarian hospital. They're expanding. They're going to need office space. Research, that's what this is currently listed under. And then also on the traffic study, if students are going to be living, which was proposed, people that might be renting, they are in and out all day long. They have classes at different times. Their traffic is going to be a lot because they're going to the campus and then they're also going to the other campus, which is the hospital campus. And then also, I just want to have the point that more people are going back to work. And so these buildings do have purpose. And I would like to think that if this building could be repurposed for something else than a high density amount of people living in a small area, and just to kind of reiterate the fact that the amount of people in this one area with just walking, and that this area is just not the impact of that many people in a small area that is more or less a parking lot, is just not conducive to living and how Downers Grove is. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hello. My name is Dan Callahan. I've been a resident of Downers Grove for 46 years and a resident of Mistwood for 14 years. First, are you all Downers Grove residents? So ask yourself, how would you feel if you were in the shoes of the people in this room? Some great things I heard. I love how the community is getting together and protecting its nature, its schools, and everything else. I've been in business in the corporate side for many, many years. I was president of a large corporation. And the one thing that we valued the most was the word trust. And the fact that there was an initial meeting with one person there, I just would ask you, how could we possibly trust what's going to happen next when that was railroaded behind our back, in my opinion. And I mean, no disrespect, but we did not have a chance to even get to this meeting without knowing anything. So the word trust is taken away from me in my book, and I don't know how you could trust them either. And I'm sorry to have to say that. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Joshua Hearn from 4705 Middaw. So I just want to start off, there was some commentary on what the rental rate was going to be. When they stated fair market rents, that's not necessarily deeming a market study for, typical residents. Fair market rents typically means public housing, which would potentially be Section 8 as well. I think that's already been demonstrated by a similar zone property, which was the former Red Roof Inn. I think everyone's familiar with that in the room here. There's numerous drug issues at that. Police are typically there, et cetera, et cetera. There was comments about, there's only 1 and 2 bedroom units in the complex. They also mentioned multiple children in units. I don't know how many people live in here with multiple kids in a 2-bedroom unit. But that's typically not standard around the area. One other comment that I'll make is people talked about the office market and the fact that there's demand for it. There are companies going back to work. This group, no one is necessarily rescuing this group that purchased the property. They purchased it about a year ago, probably not even. They've never even made an attempt to the property on the market for rent. They simply bought it, and I think somebody else commented on their property management skills. They've basically attempted to chase all the tenants out and made no attempt to renew any of the tenants. So I think if the original intent was to get a conversion for this zoning and the PUD, they should have attempted that during their due diligence period prior to closing, not close on a property, chase all the tenants out, and then come and beg for mercy from the village.
Hey, is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to speak at the public hearing? I don't see anybody making their way up here. So last chance for anybody from the public who would like to speak at the public hearing before we move forward. Please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for your time. My name is Ursula Sawulski. I live at 3100 Vinard, so I'm completely adjacent to the parking lot. I am very, very disappointed at what transpired and the fact that we're completely blindsided here by this event. I did not get the invitation to the gentleman. It completely changes the makeup of that land community. 84 units. It's just not feasible in that area. We see traffic, as previously mentioned, from employees working at Dooley, walking the neighborhood during lunchtime. 184 units will have a lot of people, and they can't cross the street. They can't go north. It's all commercial area. So all that foot traffic will come our way. And it's just completely not feasible. I strongly ask you guys to reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Stu. Good evening. My name's Stu Mercado, and I just wanted to come up. Well, I live on Drew Street, Innisbrook. We've lived there for about 4 years. I have 3 little girls, and I know what time it is when this building comes up. I work my butt off at work. I got up at 2:30 this morning, and I've been up since 2:30 this morning, and I go to work every day that I'm supposed to provide for my family. And my daughters, when I got home at 5:30 this afternoon, my daughters asked me, it's like, Dad, are you going to the meeting for the building? And I said, yeah. They said, why? Do you have to? I said, no, I don't have to. I said, but I want to because there's nothing that I can give my daughters materialistically. All of the proverbial eggs are in this basket in our home. The only thing that I can do is break, we weren't blessed with generational wealth, but I'm just trying to break generational curses. So I'm up here trying to give my daughters the best opportunity that I've never had. And coming from the south side of Chicago, moving out here. And if this building goes up, it's going to ruin everything that we have, not only myself, my wife, but everybody here has worked here for 20, 30, 40 something years. Not only their kids, but their grandkids as well. I just want to come up here and speak my piece, and please vote no to whatever is going on in here. Thank you.
Hi, Denise Bachman. My husband's here with me, Keith. We've lived in Downers Grove since 1979, and we lived on the south end of town. Now we live in Oak Creek, which is the neighbor community to Orchard Brook and Innisbrook. And Donna Lally was up here. We visited this topic in the 90s, and all the people on the north end of town did not want this, and everybody was verbal about it, but everybody knew about it then. So everybody came to the meeting. I walk every day. I know my neighbors all through this whole subdivision's connected to me. No one knew about this. No one. No one got notices. No one knew. If they knew, there'd be no room in here for any more people. They'd be standing in the hall. So I think our biggest concern is the integrity of our schools. My husband and I are both retired. We raised our children here. Terrific schools. My husband and I voted for the referendum to give the schools more money to keep our schools good, intact, and blue ribbon schools, top-notch schools. And if you think someone's going to move into a 2-bedroom apartment and only have one child or no children, you're wrong. You're wrong. They bring their cousins in. They bring everybody else in. Pretty soon there's multiple kids in there, and they're all coming into our school systems, which are overcrowded. So we live in a fixed income. We voted to raise our taxes to keep our schools good. And then I really feel if you vote for this, I think that that's going to really impact our schools. So I hope you will consider that. And then not only that, I know we're all talking about the traffic here, but what about the multitude of traffic coming down from all the building at Yorktown? It's like we're kind of all together here. So no one's done any studies on that, but I don't know, it's something to think about. But anyway, that's all I have to say. But I think all of you maybe were too young to know we addressed this in the 90s. Does anybody remember that or no? Anybody?
I'm only 25.
I thought so. Anyway, and I'm only 30, but you know, it was a long time ago, but we revisited this, but no one knew about this. No one got notices. None of my neighbors know. No one knows. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Tom. I believe I live in Mistwood. One of the guys just talked about the trust factor, and I do agree with that very much. The fact that no one in this meeting knew anything about this, there's two issues of the trust with that. The fact that only 2 people showed up and one of them was already there, shouldn't that have been a tip-off of like like they really thought they're going to do this and not one person showed up? That is a very, to me, dishonest thing. The other thing, a question was asked, well, what rents are you guys expecting? And this is the problem I have with the trust. So the answer was, well, we don't really know. Wait a second, you bought this multi-million-dollar thing. You're going to put God knows how much money into it, and you don't know what each unit's going to rent for? You couldn't answer the question. You couldn't even say, I don't know, 2,000, 1,800 to 25. No answer. I found that amazing, that you could spend millions of dollars like this and not know what your expected rents are. How does that succeed? And then it got me thinking, well, maybe because they don't really care what the rents are, because the whole thing's going to end up subsidized anyway. That's what I have to say.
Hi, my name is Nani. I have properties in the west side of Chicago, and I lived in, I'm the second house from this office building, and I lived there close to 15 years. I have two kids, 10 years and 13 years, born and raised there. And I have a brother that is a doctor that lives in Burridge, and I see the problem that happened in Burridge with Section 8 housing, and they get bullied, and nobody can go to the public schools over there because they get bullied, and everybody's forced $1 million homes to go to private schools. And I don't want that situation, that crowd. I don't want the overcrowd to go across my sidewalk. Lived there 15 years, and I'm against this. And I think it's going to bring too much overcrowded, bad population to the area that's too crowded for that small section. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Cindy Machook. I live in Orchard Brook, and the toll trust factor is huge for me. I mean, the fact we did not know anything about this until this weekend. And the rent thing, yeah, that's a little shady to me. We don't know what market value is. But the other thing is right now, I looked at the company that was going to do this development, and honestly, it's not the same company. I tried to do this quickly today that is sitting here tonight. It's not the same name. I want to be able to research them. And unfortunately, I would think the zoning commission would have wanted to research them. You're asking us as residents to put our trust in somebody saying, we're going to do this great development. And if they have not had the greatest history with what they've done, how can you, as village zoning, say, okay, carte blanche, we're just going to do this? So I think if nothing else, we certainly need more time than a vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anybody moving. Last call for anybody from the public who hasn't spoke that would like to speak. Okay, hearing nobody. Good. Oh, he changed his mind. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. My name is Peter Solowski. We live probably closest to that property, the proposed project site. My wife was just up here. I don't want to sound like a broken record here, and I really hate to speak publicly. All I want to say is that, again, it's very regrettable that we just heard about this. It kind of blows my mind that anyone would even consider voting on something like this. This is a major project. And again, we just heard about this weekend, and some studies been done. But I think for something so massive, in my mind at least, that may have a major impact on our community for many, many years, you need to think about this really hard. And you need to do some real studies. And studies by someone independent, not connected to people who will directly benefit from this project. And so please, I beg you, do your homework. Thanks.
Yeah. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Megan. I've lived here my entire life. I'm roughly 22 years old, and I just graduated college a few weeks ago. I'm a second-year doctoral student for physical therapy, and I just think, like, I know they were talking about maybe medical students wanting to live there, but I know myself and my friends who are medical students, like, with certain rent rates and stuff, like, you can't afford that. And also just the fact that it's kind of an island. You can't really walk places easily. And I know people my age like want to be in like a downtown area or a place with easy access to transportation or ways to go walk to a store or go out with your friends to dinner or something, which I think is more conducive with the downtown area here where there are apartment buildings and stuff going up versus kind of in this island, which then could ultimately impact our communities in the neighboring area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay. Wanna roll right into the staff report, or do you need, anybody need a break over there? No? All right, staff report. While Flora's getting ready, since we just kind of wrapped up the public input portion, I just want to acknowledge that we did get about a dozen letters from people who couldn't be here tonight. And I think I recognize some names, some of you who submitted letters, I think. But just for the record, we did all receive up here copies of about a dozen different letters.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Flora Leon. I'm the senior planner with the Village of Downers Grove. The petition before you tonight is case number 26 PZC0021 for the address 1020 31st Street. The request includes a planned unit development and a rezoning. On this first slide, I wanted to provide a location map as an overview of the site. As you know, the subject property is zoned OR, Office Research. The property is located on the north side of 31st Street, and it's approximately 350 feet west of Highland. As I mentioned earlier, the petitioner is requesting approval of a planned unit development and a zoning map amendment, otherwise known as a rezoning, from OR, Office Research, to B2/PUD, which stands for General Retail Business and Planned Unit Development, to convert an existing office building into a multifamily apartment building. As far as noticing goes, I did want to highlight that all statutory requirements were met per the zoning ordinance. Those requirements include notice provided via mail to all owners within 250 feet from the subject property.
Come on, that's unacceptable. We heard from everybody. We heard everything that you've had to say. It's staff's turn now to speak. And I'd like you to give them and us the same courtesy that we afforded you for as long as we did to hear your comments without interruption. I expect the same from staff, and I expect the same from here.
In addition to the mailers, the zoning ordinance also requires posting of public hearing signs. 2 signs were posted at this location by our Public Works Department. The last item in our public hearing requirements include publishing a legal notice in the Daily Herald. I also wanted to highlight that staff did receive public comment after the agenda was posted online. Copies of all of this correspondence have been printed and placed on the dais for your review this evening. With the rezoning request, there was also an additional neighborhood meeting that was required by the zoning ordinance. A separate meeting was hosted by the petitioner on May 21st. A summary of the meeting can be found on page 68 of the overall agenda packet. If I may, I'd like to just pivot back to the request at hand. So with the rezoning, I did want to highlight that the adjacent property to the east is currently zoned B2. As such, rezoning this property to B2 will ensure that spot zoning is not occurring. In addition to that, I wanted to provide kind of an overview of a planned unit development overlay. Planned unit developments, otherwise known as PUDs, are intended to accommodate development that can be difficult, if not impossible, to carry out under otherwise applicable zoning district standards. Specifically, the zoning ordinance does indicate that plan unit developments may be appropriate for housing variety to offer a range of housing options. On this next slide, I wanted to provide the plat of survey for your review. For clarity, I've outlined the boundary of the entire site in yellow. Next, I wanted to highlight the existing building footprint in gray. And then next, I've highlighted the existing two-level parking garage. You will also notice these red triangles indicating the existing access off of 31st Street. Those existing access points are proposed to remain as is. Here I've provided the proposed site plan. Again, for clarity, I've highlighted the boundary of the site in yellow. You'll see again the entrance is highlighted in red, existing to remain. In purple, I have highlighted a pedestrian connection leading to the existing sidewalk network off of 31st Street. Next, I've highlighted some of the proposed green space. There is green space that's highlighted kind of in a red there. That's some of the parking that the petitioner is hoping to remove to add additional green space to the site. You'll notice that as a condition of approval tonight, the petitioner is required to remove an additional 40 surface parking spaces north and east of the existing parking garage to replace that with open green space. So that's what the condition is referring to on the site plan. I also wanted to note that additional parking is also proposed to be removed. As the petitioner indicated, on the second level of the parking garage, they're hoping to create an outdoor amenity deck with seating and additional landscaping. Finally, in blue, along the north of the site, there is additional surface parking spaces that are proposed to be removed to create an outdoor sports court as well as a dog park. Overall, with the reduction in parking, the petitioner is proposing to reduce the parking from 750 to 612. It's important to note that with 184 units, the required parking is 368. On this next slide, I wanted to provide the overall elevations that are proposed. Some of the exterior changes that you'll see on this facade include indenting sections of the building to create balconies, as well as the addition of new metal panels and glass. As far as interior conversions go, the building would include installation of full residential kitchens, as well as in-unit laundry, modern HVAC systems, and life safety upgrades. With regards to resident amenities, as the petitioner indicated, those could include shared lounge areas, a fitness space, co-working spaces, the outdoor amenity deck, sports courts, and the dog park. On this next slide, I wanted to highlight the proposed deviations that are included with the plan unit development request. The first item here is the floor area ratio. Floor area ratio is calculated by looking at the overall floor area of the building and then dividing that by the area of the lot upon which the building is located. As such, the required maximum that's associated with the B2 is 0.75, and the existing, otherwise proposed, is 0.93. The FAR, the petitioner has noted, is an existing condition of the structure. The second item on the table is the height. The maximum height that's permitted is 35 feet, while the proposed is 82. Again, the petitioner's rationale is that this is an existing condition of the structure. Finally, the third item for your review is the parking setback along I-88, where the requirement would be 25 feet. The existing parking is 8 feet. Another existing condition of the site. Now I'd like to go ahead and look at the comprehensive plan. So within the comprehensive plan, we do have a land use and development section that indicates that there should be a facilitation of redevelopment opportunities to continue to meet housing development needs. Specifically, the plan also indicates that there should be a creation and enhancement of mixed-use areas to include housing. Moreover, the plan also indicates that there should be an adaptive reuse of existing structures. I also wanted to highlight that the plan does acknowledge that the village has a landlocked status and that there should be focus on strategic development, infill development, adaptive reuse to ensure that we maximize the available limited land. This next section calls out for the economic development portion of the plan, which includes promoting and encouraging the rehabilitation of older buildings that are becoming functionally obsolete. The plan also specifically calls out that if there is existing spaces that, if there were existing office spaces that can be redeveloped into mixed-use developments to include multifamily residential, this could complement and might be compatible with ongoing office uses. The last item on this slide here is that the village should continue to work with private developers to ensure future redevelopment and renovations reflect high-quality design. On this last slide for the comprehensive plan, within the focus area plan, the comprehensive plan indicates that the village should continue to support and encourage redevelopment and modernization of Class C office space that has become functionally obsolete. Before I touch on the criteria for your review tonight with the 2 entitlement requests, I did want to highlight that currently the village does not have an attainable housing policy. Instead, the criteria that would be for your review tonight with the 2 entitlement requests are the zoning map amendment criteria listed here. Staff does find that the rezoning criteria has been met with the proposed development. The second set of criteria is associated with the plan unit development. Staff does find that all standards of approval have been met, and as such, staff does recommend approval of this petition 26PZC0021. Should the Planning and Zoning Commission agree, a draft motion can be found on pages 58 and 59 of the overall agenda packet. If you all have any questions, I would be happy to take those now. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for staff?
Is there any intention to create any kind of a drive that would access Saratoga or Bernard at all in the future?
As part of this development proposal, there is no connection plan as part of the request in front of you this evening.
What do you say?
What? There is no connection as part of this development request this evening. There is no planned road connection as part of the request in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission tonight. There's no planned connection as part of this development that is not part of this request.
I have another question. Because of the green space that's being added to the space and the impervious areas removed, is there any upgrades being done to the stormwater or anything of that sort?
Because it's a net decrease, there aren't any additional like BMPs or anything like that required, but that would be reviewed closely with the building permit submission.
And then one last question, is there any conversation happening about any sort of improvements or expansions to Bel Air or to North or any, I know North most likely not, but I don't know about Bel Air in particular. Has there been any conversation that you're aware of within the village regarding that?
That would be a discussion with the school district and not as part of the purview of this board.
Okay, thank you.
But can I hear that? That would be a discussion with the school district that is not under the purview of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Hold on. This is an opportunity for us to ask questions of staff.
Understand what he said. I am just asking a simple question. Has it been discussed with the school board? The influx of a possible 200 more students. Has that been discussed with the schools?
That was the question I just asked, and he answered that that's something for District 58 to answer.
That was asked and answered. If it's a matter of you not being able to hear, just give me a signal and we'll lean into the mic a bit. No.
No.
That was answered.
So you could vote it in tonight without ever discussing with the school district.
We do not meet with the school district.
That's
Here.
not our purview.
That's not our deal.
Considering the schools is not.
All right, we're going to get back.
We gotta stop.
Questions from the plan commission of staff. Right, I don't know if I kind of cut in. I don't know if you were finished.
No, I'm finished. Thank you.
Okay.
I got a quick question. Is there any concern about switch system for the new usage? I mean, it's a building that has, I don't know, maybe 5 bathrooms per floor. You're gonna have how many people showering in the bathroom? Like, is that gonna affect the current sewage system in any way? The improvements are gonna have to be made?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Reyes. So as part of the overall review, the sanitary district is involved and would provide a capacity analysis for the proposed units.
When would that happen?
As part of this development proposal, the sanitary district is required to do what's called an approval to serve letter, and that has been received with this development.
And then just to add to that too, if they move forward, and they submit plans for a building permit, all these departments get to review it for those building code type issues. Okay, other questions for staff?
Brief question on lighting. As an office building, it's pretty much dark. Parking lots are dark on nights and weekends. This would be used obviously 24 hours a day.
Commissioner Barry, can you speak into the speaker? Thank you.
Sorry, yeah. In its current use as an office building, whether fully leased or not, it's mostly dark on the nights and weekends as well as the parking area. So this would have, just by very nature of its usage, more, continue use 24/7. What about the lighting around here? Is any consideration being given to lighting impacts on the surrounding neighborhoods and or across the street in the kind of the woodsy area there?
Sure. So as part of the submission, the applicant did provide what's called a photometric plan. So that's a lighting plan indicating that the light levels along the property lines are within the zoning ordinance requirements.
Other questions of staff? Can't tell, Mr. Barry, if you're still thinking.
No.
If you have any other questions.
Sorry, I'm losing my voice.
Yeah, okay. Okay, anything else? Any other questions for staff?
Not for staff.
No? Okay. Okay, we're gonna move into, or give the petitioner an opportunity to come back. There were a lot of different statements made, questions asked. I think they all fall within a theme of half a dozen issues or so. I mean, more, but I think a majority of them could probably be lumped into a small list. So this is the opportunity for you to come up and not necessarily present any new testimony, but kind of respond to what's come up and respond to some of the statements and comments that were made in that vacant.
Sure.
Last comments that you'd like to.
Yeah, I'll try my best.
And then when you get, near the end, if I notice anything here, maybe that was not addressed, I might ask you to.
Okay.
I might chime in.
Thank you. So what I just heard was a lot of folks who love where they live. I think we all heard that, right? And I think that's a testament to the village and what a great community this is. Our project is a chance to let other people enjoy this community. But your job here is to look at the standards for approval. Now, you just saw the staff report and they recommend approval. They believe that we've fulfilled the legal standards for approval. Those are your guideposts, your guiding light in making a recommendation here tonight. Are what are the standards and have we satisfied them? So I'm going to try to go through as quickly as I can on the comments some of the comments that were made in the groupings that I hope we can address as efficiently as possible here. And I hope it's helpful, because that's what this public hearing is about. It's about giving information to the board, and it's also about giving information to the public. So The first question was about whether there was a study about additional traffic and adding a light at 75th Street and Highland. I'll let Javier, I think, address that at the end.
31st.
Well, I think he said 75th. So I'll let Javier address that. What is the village giving to the developers? Actually, nothing. The developers are required by ordinance to provide impact fees. So $1,150,000 goes to between the park district and the school districts. So that's $977,000 to the park district, $124 to District 58, and $48 to High School District 99. So those are codified impact fees that the code sets forth that developers who want to do residential have to pay. So the village has already thought, okay, what is the impact here? How do I talked earlier about what are the safeguards here in the development? That's one of them, is the impact fee. So we aren't getting any TIF money or anything like that. We are actually donating funds to the village in addition to creating this development. Will taxes be increased? No, we talked about there be no diminution on value of nearby properties. Future rezoning of other properties nearby. So we heard about a concern that all the other office buildings in Downers Grove that were vacant, if they were vacant, would all become residential. Well, that's not how zoning works. Every single application is judged on its own merits. So they'd have to come in, they'd have to apply, they'd have to show that they satisfied all the standards like we're doing here tonight. Effect on the school district. The high school, we just talked about the impact fees that would be paid, and we're happy to, as a condition of approval or recommendation, to talk to the school district about their needs and how we can work with them to make this proposal impact them less. I heard some good comments about overcrowding at one of the elementary schools. That's the information that we need to make sure we work with them so that students aren't going to be not monitored and things like that. The zoning approval process was flawed. We heard that over and over again. Why didn't I get a notice? Why didn't I get a notice? This is such BS. Well, the truth is the municipal code only requires you to give notice if you're within 250 feet away. That's an Illinois state law. And that's what Downers Grove follows. That's what almost every municipality follows. So that notice was given. We made sure I have a list right there of all the property owners who were notified. Notice was also published in the paper, and there were 2 signs posted at the property, which is one more than municipalities typically post. And look at all the people that showed up. Clearly, folks were given a chance to get notified, whether through Facebook or otherwise, of this hearing. And the fact that people didn't get the notice is because they live further than 250 feet, which is exactly which is the safeguard that the state provides, saying that is the amount.
I have to interrupt you for a second. Come on, folks. Are we serious? We gave you the floor. We gave you the floor for 2 hours, uninterrupted. Uninterrupted. You do nothing but drag this out further if you can continue to interrupt. We've heard everything that you've had to say. We understand you're not going to agree with everything that's stated from this point forward, possibly, but to interrupt the meeting and do that is just totally inappropriate and out of order. I'm going to ask you one more time. Just please respect the speaker's time as he did yours, so that we can get through this meeting and move this on to village council where it needs to go. So I'm asking you one more time to show the same respect that you were shown when you had the floor. Okay.
We heard some questions about the open house. We sent the notices to the same list that we sent it to for the mailer. That's what the village's requirement is. That's what we complied with. Our information was located on the application. If anyone wanted to call us to ask about the project or anything like that, they can do that still now today. We will give out our business cards. They can ask us any question they want. We want to work with the neighbors. We want to hear what their concerns are and see if there's any way we can address them. Traffic study, not accounting for evening and weekends. We heard testimony from our traffic engineer that we can accommodate that traffic. Hearing signs, we already talked about the public hearing signs. Out of scale, no density in subdivisions nearby. Well, this building is almost as close as you can get to Route 88, Interstate 88, and Highlands. It is almost on the highway. I mean, it is in an area that someone called it an island. I mean, that should reflect that this is away from a lot of stuff, which is good for high density uses. Infrastructure strain. We heard about folks saying, oh, there's no infrastructure. Well, the staff report notes the existing utilities servicing the building are sufficient for the proposed use. Remember, this was used for a commercial office space with no issue. Water, sewer, gas, electric, it's all there. We heard about the sport court sound next to Interstate 88. Obviously, that's a great place for a sport court, right? Where there's already lots of traffic. Nighttime lighting, we provided a photometric report. Who benefits? Well, like I said earlier, the folks who want to move to Downers Grove benefit. Those are folks who maybe need an entry point. They need I had an apartment at one point. A lot of people here had an apartment at one point. It's a way to get up in the world. And it's a way to, people come to those places. They come to Downers Grove and say, I love living here. I love the park with the fountain. I want to live here. And maybe those people will someday be buyers of the houses in these subdivisions and will be long-term residents of the community. That's what the village wants. One gentleman talked about saving a commercial building whose time has passed, and that's exactly it. This building's time has passed. And why do we know that? There was a CBRE put this on the market for a commercial use since 2022. No buyers. We have a buyer here. That's what the market dictates. Let's see. Condos, why not do condos? Condo market's not great. The rental market is great. Apartments will not help public health. We'll tell that to folks who can't afford a condo. You know, the thoroughfare, we heard about there's going to be no thoroughfare as part of these plans into the neighboring subdivisions. I like what Mr. Smolin said. He said, be careful about what might end up there if we don't do this project, right? Because what we know here is we're going to make an effort to make a great place for people to live. The opposite of that is for a building to be falling apart, decrepit, having no increase in property value whatsoever. So Ms. Kankar, she mentioned, we talked about the school district items. Important thing here, the owners are in discussions with the Midwest College of Physicians to lease out some of these spaces. And that's the target renter that we're looking for. I know someone said, I can't afford that, I'm a doctor. So I pressed the client to give me a little more information on the rents. So it sounds like the 1 bedrooms could go for about $2,000. And the two bedrooms could go for about $2,500. He told me not to say that because it could change in 2 years. And we don't want to be held to that. But that's just kind of the range. And, you know, a lot of folks can afford that. And so I think those Midwest College Physicians could afford that. Let's see. Not suitable for conversion from office space to residential. We're seeing this all over the place, these conversions, because it works. We need housing. We don't need as much office space. The parking spaces, you heard about, I want to make sure everyone knows that as the staff report says, there's ample parking at the site. The parking supply would more than exceed the requirements and allow for sufficient guest parking. What's great about this site is there's a big parking lot there. What oftentimes we get concerns about, there's not going to be enough parking on these sites. Well, we have a massive parking lot that has ample parking that can accommodate this use. We heard about the traffic study being flawed, but you know, we had an expert here from KLOA, probably the most distinguished traffic experts in the state, come up here and talk about his report and said that the traffic would not be a problem. Someone said about, you know, no one's going to have open space. There's not enough open space for kids to play. There are balconies for folks to, there are balconies for folks to go out on. And I remember when I had an apartment, I had no open space. What did I do? I drove there. There's a beautiful park, you know, right down the road that everyone can go to, the woods there. So, you know, there's ample open space and there's open space on site. 150 kids. Someone mentioned concern about how many kids there were. Remember, there are a lot of studios and 1 bedrooms. So those probably aren't going to have very many kids, if any, right? So that's an important piece to this. Let's see. I want to make sure I'm not being repetitive. The walking to different places, I think that's a legitimate point. It may be difficult to walk from place to place through this development. I think most people will drive. I think that's what they're going to do. If that's where if I live there, I would drive or ride a bike, do whatever you have to do. But walking is probably not the best option there right now. I think someone mentioned that Downers Grove prefers homeowners. But in every village I go to, they say they want a mix. They want a mix. They want homeowners, they want renters, they want middle income, they want higher income, they want lower income. They want a mix. They want a vibrant place where people can learn from each other. Someone said that they preferred that 65 and up live here. 65 and up can live here. There's no age restriction on these housing. So if folks want to downsize and move into an apartment, this is a good place for them. Someone asked for more time to discuss these issues. I mean, I think there's been a good discussion here, and we'd ask for this body to recommend approval to the village board, and that'll be the final decision maker. And if there are any conditions, if there are any concerns, if there are any questions that you have for us, we'd like to answer them now, and we'll answer them from the board at the next meeting. And we really appreciate everyone's time, and we understand everyone's concern. Change is hard, change is new. Things are, things like that can be difficult, and we're here to hopefully assuage some of those concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say one thing before we move on, because I typically say it at the front end of the meeting, and I realized at some point during this hearing that I missed it, but this is a recommending body. Anything that comes out of this meeting tonight, as far as a vote is concerned, goes on to the village council as a recommendation. There is another public hearing in front of the village council, people that will actually make the final decision at a future date, which will be publicly noticed. And if you follow the village's, website and that type of thing, it'll be advertised, I'm sure pretty, it'll be advertised and you can find it easily. So I usually say that at the front end, just so people know what to expect here. I skipped it, so I just wanted to get that out there now. And there'll be another public hearing held. You'll have another opportunity to show up and speak. If you think of things, I know that some of you were wanting to talk after we moved on from public input and got up here. And the fact that there is another public hearing, those types of things that you don't feel that you got out today or had further questions, you do have another opportunity before a final decision is made to get that out there. So I just wanted to say that. Okay, so we're going to move up to deliberation up here. Any comments anybody would like to say? I don't know if we want to start at one end, but if somebody just wants to jump in and start with comments, thoughts.
Okay, I guess I'll start. I mean, after listening to both sides here, I feel that, the existing structure is obviously not of great use to the village or the community. So I personally think it's a fantastic way to stay in line with the comprehensive plan while also adding additional housing, which we have discovered quite frequently in this, discussion area that we are sorely in need of. Most importantly, most of the people who currently live in or currently work in Downers Grove are not able to afford to live here. So this would be a great entry point for them to be able to especially work at some of the newer medical facilities, because medical facilities are our primary industry. So I think for that purpose, it would be wonderful. I think the fact that they're creating indeed an island, they're creating a community that basically encourages the residents to stay there for recreational purposes or for business purposes. So yes, they may have to drive out, but they could easily go across to Lyman Woods if they need to take a walk in the woods or something of that effect. The price points based off of what you explained market value to be, I feel is very reasonable for most people, which I appreciate. Thank you very much for that. Adding more green space is always appreciated, especially in areas that have been, concrete deserts for such an extended period of time. The donations to the park district and the schools are very much appreciated. I think the property values overall will increase because of the increased, usage of the building versus sitting vacant and allowed to become dilapidated. That's not going to benefit anybody's property values. And then it also ultimately allows for us to have a more diverse community, which is what in all of our community, in all of our, community planning conversations is something we've all said that we've wanted. So it is something that gives us that opportunity.
Come on. Everybody's had their opportunity to speak. It's our turn to speak now.
Yeah, it's very
You don't have to agree, but you do have to respect when somebody else has the floor and listen to what they have to say, just like we've done tonight with all of you. So I have not talked down to anybody.
No.
I disagree.
Proper notice to anybody, and you're railroading it through. It's clearly it's a done deal. No matter what we think. We're
All right. All right. This is out of order, okay? It's gonna stop. Stop. You're out of order. We're gonna move on.
With all due respect.
Is there any way to get that gentleman removed?
Yeah.
Well, here we go. Here we go.
If we can all please have a little bit of decorum here. As the chairman has noted, we have follow a procedure here. The petitioner spoke. There's an opportunity for public comment. The petitioner, staff, and the planning and zoning commission listened to the public speak, and you were provided that opportunity. Planning and zoning then offered staff an opportunity to present our staff report. And then the Planning and Zoning Commission offered the petitioner an opportunity to rebut, just like our standard process. They're in deliberation now. This is their deliberation. We just ask for a manner of respect when they're talking here, to hold your applause and to hold your comments. They've provided an opportunity for you to speak. We're just asking your opportunity to let them speak and have their say as they deliberate about this case. So I'd appreciate your patience on this. I know it's been about a couple hours now we're going on, but this is their opportunity to speak. So I would just ask you to allow them to speak. As the chairman has noted, there's another opportunity before, if this gets moved to the village council, for the public to participate in that process as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am finished with my comments. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else like to comment?
Oh, yeah, sure. I just want to say that Downers Grove has put together an update to their comprehensive plan, and it was very well done. There was opportunity for everybody in Downers Grove to participate. They went out of their way to have live meetings. They advertised in papers, social media, door to door. Everyone had opportunity to participate. And I remember us going through the comprehensive plan here a couple months ago, and how I was so struck by how hopeful the plan was and how self-aware Downers Grove is about ourselves, that we're a bunch of rich white people living in a place and saying, those people cannot live here. And that's what I'm disappointed in hearing of this community here, who is afraid of some other people who don't have enough money to buy a house in Downers Grove. Our children can't buy anything in Downers Grove. Our children can possibly get an apartment. I lived in an apartment. I made like $5 an hour when I first started working. And I just want to say, I think all of us here, we have over 100 years of living in Downers Grove. We are residents of Downers Grove. We are volunteers for you. The city council is elected. We don't get paid. I worked today. I was out of work for a year and a half. I worked all frickin' day downtown Chicago. I got up, I don't even know how long ago, 16 hours ago. I'm not sure I did the math right, but I'm really tired. I am so tired. And we still have another thing to discuss after this. And everybody here that's leaving right now, I just think it's amazing how rude that is. I'm just flabbergasted that our our community is like that.
Chairman, we need to talk about the case. We don't want to, we just want to make sure we talk about the case and how this case is meeting standards or not meeting standards. So I know there's a difference of opinion between some people in the audience and at least one commissioner that's already spoken tonight, but I just want to make sure we talk about the case and make sure we focus on the case in front of you guys and the standards that we're talking about. And to Commissioner Eberhard and Frankovich, I think you both mentioned comp plan, which is completely reasonable here as well. But just make sure we're talking about the case at hand. Thank you.
Yes, no, and that's why I didn't want to start.
I just wanted to add one last thing to my comments, which is I do believe the standards for approval have been met. And so I am a yes for this.
Yeah, I 100% believe the standards have been met. All the criteria has been met. I heard a lot of people upset that they just didn't know about this. So they had an opportunity. We listened for 2 hours. I didn't hear anything compelling except for a lot of complaints about the schools and again, I just don't believe how rude these people are.
Okay,
The schools.
Madam Eberhard, I know.
There's a lot of assumptions being thrown out here today that have nothing to do with this case. That's all I have to say. Nothing to do with approving this.
Any other comments? Discussion?
I think it's important that everybody here understand how this process works to some extent. Those of us here on the commission, as is pointed out, are citizen volunteers, and we got a packet of information last week that had this information. So we had our opportunity to review it last week. So we come into this with slightly more information than you do ahead of time, but we've not been working on this particular issue for months. So we've had time and we take your input valuably because we set our own opinions and then we take your input in and kind of balance those two things. So at the end of the day, ultimately, we're an advisory board who has to take a look at, does this meet the criteria as set forth by the village, and taking all the other noise out of it, and does this or does this not? Personally, I think it's kind of an odd sort of one-off standing there. It'll be a relatively isolated community that will be pretty much 100% people driving to and from there. But in terms of change to the community, it's an existing building that will have more green space now. There will be some other residents, and point well taken that Bel Air School, there should be some discussion, I think, between the developer and the school if there's going to be an influx of kids there, so they can accommodate it. But beyond that, I've not seen where the deviations being asked and repurposing of existing commercial structures especially along the I-88 corridor that are now aging to residential is not inherently a bad thing. Say this one, the scale's a little big, but not enough that it actually defeats what the village is asking for. So it's not perfect, but I don't have enough to say no.
Mr. Reyes?
My concern is mostly with process. I feel like people make some good points that if we're gonna approve something or recommend something for approval that impacts the school, why is there no process for us to have that conversation? That's a conversation that's never gonna happen, if I understand correctly? Or is that something that the village council needs to consider and not us? I don't know. I just feel like that part of the process should be considered. I also feel like some of the questions that I have are like, well, that's later. That's for other departments to see. And that's fine if that's the way it works, but it doesn't give me confidence to say, yes, I should recommend this is gonna be fine. I don't know what study was made, but I don't think having 1 bathroom per floor equals having 40 bathrooms per floor. I don't think it's the same thing. And lastly, I'll say that we got this 3 minutes before the meeting started. No, I don't have time to read this, and I don't think that's appropriate. If we're gonna consider all the comments that are being made, all the comments that were sent in, I just don't think that's the correct process.
And just for the record, you're referring to the
packet of
the 12 letters from the community.
Yes.
Right. Okay. I don't want anybody to interpret that to mean that we just got these packets 3 minutes before the meeting on the case.
Last week. Saw the proposal last week. but comments from the community just got dropped.
Well, and it looks like they were all emailed today.
Okay, well then that's fair. I'm just saying
One of them wasn't, sorry.
I didn't see them. So I haven't had a chance to read. I don't know if there's something there that should be considered that's different from what they said. Maybe, maybe not. I just feel like that was not done appropriately. I don't see what the rush is to approve it. We clearly have significant pushback that I want to consider more, so I just don't understand why we have to vote.
Yeah, but we're not approving it.
Well, recommending that.
And our job is to make sure that it meets the criteria that is set out by the
Sure,
village.
But I understand, but one of the main criteria is this a benefit for the community? And so we had a case similar a couple of months ago with a property that wanted to be incorporated, and we said, well, I don't know, some of us thought that it was a benefit to our community, some of us didn't think it was a benefit. It was such a black and white, and I don't think this is either.
Anybody else?
May I make some comments, Chairman?
Sure.
So I think we have a responsibility to look holistically at the entire Downers Grove community, not only residents, but also visitors that come to Downers Grove and also business owners that operate. That's kind of how this economic engine works here in Downers Grove. So I know there's been a lot of feedback for the adjacent neighborhoods, but our responsibility up here and more of a conversation with you guys is really a look at the community as a whole. And is this needed? Is this beneficial for Downers Grove as an entirety, as a community as a whole? So some of the things that I see, and I agree with staff's recommendation for recommending approval for this, is that we've got an existing building that is currently obsolete or reaching obsolescence. And the best thing to do is try to convert this building into some other that has positive utility. So, in this case, what the petitioner has brought forward is a residential use. So, that's the best thing, even when it comes to sustainability, where you're not demoing an entire building and you're finding new purpose and reuse for an existing building. So that's one of the things that I think aligns with the comprehensive plan. It allows for additional diversity when it comes to housing, especially with respect to affordability. And just bear with me. We've got additional economic drivers that are coming to Downers Grove, especially in the medical field, that I think would benefit from having this type of residential property. And I think there's been some challenges with notice and presenting information. But from what I'm hearing from staff, all of the rules and regulations for providing notice were in compliance. And if anybody has reasons to feel that they were not in compliance, I would encourage them to bring that to village staff for consideration. But I think I'm finding more reasons why I think the standards have been met, and I would support this.
Yeah, I generally agree, and I believe that the standards have been met as well. We've talked at length about the need for housing, how many people that currently live in Downers Grove who can't afford the home that they're in are not craving this sort of opportunity. We've also talked about the rest of the development along the Butterfield corridor and the types of businesses and changes that are going on there that this would, complement. So I believe it's supportive. I do think the impact to Bel Air School is important to consider and is something that we should address coming steps.
Yeah, I too feel like the standards have been met. As far as all the noticing concerns, everything was done per state law and per village ordinance. I don't know what else to say about that. I feel like that's pretty black and white. I know some people feel like the notice should go out 2,500 feet or whatever, but whatever number you pick, somebody's going to be outside that notice line and be offended that they weren't notified, which is why there are signs that are located on the property and things posted in the newspaper, et cetera. We get comments a lot about having other types of housing, more affordable housing, and it seems to be a very consistent drumbeat we've heard for years that they're looking for other types of housing at different price points. I know not everybody likes what market rate rent is these days. Rent has just gotten expensive for everybody, but in the big picture, it's an option for people, and hopefully those people turn into buyers here. I think that's the goal. But I agree with a lot of what's been said and what Mr. Patel said about I feel like the standards have been met, and there is a need for the housing, and I intend to support it.
I have a question for all of us. I'm not trying to make a point.
Yeah.
If we believe that the standards have been met, and we approve this for recommend this for approval, what about the next building that comes forward? The next office building that comes forward, and the next office building that comes forward. We do need to, we're analyzing them independently. And then at any point are we going to be able to say, hey, it's just too much now? And is that going to be unfair to the last one that comes in? So my question is like, how does that work? Or should we just, because it's a permitted use, answer time?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, the kind of the key factors are we're not doing spot zoning. The reality is we're just expanding a zoning district that's already there. It's kind of a natural progression, and we're not making drastic changes to the zoning. The people that are impacted, like schools and things, schools are notified of our agendas, and they see and know, even though we don't have joint meetings with them, you can bet that they were given notice of these applications and they know what's coming forth here. And they're aware. If they had strong objections in the past, we've gotten letters of support and non-support for different petitions from entities like the school board and others. There are other entities. I'm not even going to try to name them all because I'll screw it up. But the fact that this is a PUD, it's plan specific. It's not just a blanket zoning and saying, hey, anything that you want to do that's allowed in that zoning district, you can do automatically by right and not have to have hearings or anything. The fact that this is plan specific helps ensure that when the next one comes along next door, they're going to likely need to do the same thing.
Yes,
And it'll be judged and evaluated on the standards and the adjacents to that lot, wherever that one's at. And they'll have to have a plan that works and do their homework just like everybody else. It's not an automatic. It goes through a process in and of itself. Sometimes they're approved, sometimes they're not. It just all depends. It's a case by case basis.
No, I understand it. I guess I'm just not convinced that
Understood.
that's the correct way to do it. Because at some point we are going to be unfair to someone. We're going to be unfair to the
So hopefully we're not unfair to anybody, but
yeah.
Can I just say, I don't think we're setting a precedent here. I feel that each one of these planned unit developments or any zoning change or whatever we were ever presented with, we take it on a case by case basis. It's not setting a precedent. Nobody's being disadvantaged because of somebody else's decision. It's about their plan when they bring it to the table, what they're offering, what they have to offer the village. So I don't think that that's a fair assessment, frankly.
No, actually, to echo, because that was one of the questions after I read the packet coming in here on the broader thing, when, again, thinking about especially things on the I-88 corridor and aging office buildings and reusing, is this something we have considered on a broader basis from our zoning? Is that more of a permissive use than making each one of these as time goes along an exception? Is there any consideration given to broadening that to allow for some redevelopment in these areas? Because despite everybody's hopeful wishes, we're not going to rent these things out. It's just not going to happen. So talk about repurposing and the housing needs. Is that something we're considering now, or we're just going to continue handling these as a one-off?
Well, I think because it's in the comprehensive plan as a permitted use or permitted idea to continue to develop, I think that the idea is, what's going to be profitable and what's going to be needed. And those are two things right there. So that would lend itself to being more of that type development. But again, each case is on its own basis. So you cannot judge one based off of another because it's all depending on where it is, what are the surrounding conditions, everything is different. So you cannot say that they're all going to be the same. It's just my opinion.
Any other discussion? Anybody have any last comments before we look for a motion? No? Okay. This is the appropriate time for anybody who'd like to make the motion.
I'd like to make a motion, Chairman. Based on the petitioner's submittal, the staff report, and the testimony presented, I find that the petitioner has met the standards of approval for a planned unit development and map amendment as required by the Village of Downers Grove zoning ordinance and is in the public interest, and therefore I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the Village Council approval of 26-PZC-0021, subject to the 3 conditions listed on the staff report.
Okay, motion approved by Mr. Patel. Is there a second?
I will second.
Second by Ms. Frankovic. Roll call.
All right, Patel,
Aye.
Frankovic,
Aye.
Everhart,
Aye.
Reyes,
Nay.
Wolf,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Chairman Rickard.
Aye.
The ayes have it. This item will be scheduled for village council consideration. What I recommend of those in the room is those packets are published the Friday before the Tuesday meeting of council. It has not been scheduled yet. Council does occur on the first, second, and third Tuesdays of the month. So look at that. I think a lot of you have my contact information specifically, so just email me if you need to confirm when it is scheduled. But I do recommend just continuing to look Friday afternoons. End of business is when they schedule those council packets for the following Tuesday after the weekend. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to make a comment too. We do have another case to go over and more things to cover. So if you'd like to chat amongst yourselves, if you could please do so out in the hallway, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Have to grab your.
I know. I'm so tired. Sorry.
Chairman, did you want to take a 5-minute recess?
Yeah, we're gonna recess for 5 minutes. If anybody needs to take a break, but let's plan on being back here at like a couple minutes before 10 here. It's like 9:52. So we'll take 5 and then we'll come right back here. All right, so we're kind of reconvening and resuming the meeting here at 9:58 p.m. after a 5-minute break. And we'll move into the next agenda item. Who's going to be doing the presenting on that?
Oh, that'll be me, Chairman Rickard. Thank you for having me
Floor's all
tonight.
yours.
Thank you. So tonight we're going to continue our discussion on zoning ordinance updates. As was discussed a little bit earlier tonight, we have a comp plan, and one of those recommendations was to update our zoning ordinance to reflect the comp plan changes that were taking place or proposed. So a few items on tonight's agenda. We're going to talk about the People Over Parking Act of the state of Illinois, the parking ordinance update we're going to talk about tonight, some minor clarifications and modifications from the zoning ordinance that staff has found over the past year since we've last updated the zoning ordinance, and then again talk about our schedule. So to provide a little bit of a discussion on the People Over Parking Act, some background information, this is a state law that the state passed in 2025. The effective date of that is today, June 1st. And it talks about transit hubs and transit corridors. So transit hubs are train stations, transit corridors are more bus routes, and there's specific requirements in the ordinance and the state law, that note that if there is a development within a half mile of a transit hub or transit corridor, you cannot require parking. So an applicant can provide it voluntarily, but the village or municipality in the state of Illinois cannot require it.
Sorry, was that half a mile?
Half a mile. So there was a proposed trailer bill in the most current session of the state legislature, and that was not passed in that session. So this is the new state law that the village cannot require parking in these sort of circles around our train stations. So just want to give you a heads up on that, that is passed and an effective law at this point. So those are our circles. Staff will be working with applicants when they come forward about this. And so to let them know what the state law is and that we'll be following that. If people voluntarily provide parking, then we can require our typical standard things with landscaping and setbacks. So if it's a volunteer thing and they provide it, then we'll have all of our ordinance at our disposal. But in terms of requiring parking, we cannot require any parking for those developments. Not to say people wouldn't provide parking, but the village can't require parking in that location. So we will continue to work through this. The parking ordinance updates that you see tonight may change a little bit just based on the state law. We didn't put it into any of the proposed amendments we were showing you tonight because we didn't know what was necessarily going to happen with the bill, but we wanted you to become aware of that. So when we look at our parking ordinance update, the Guiding DG Comp Plan talked about reviewing shared parking agreement, regulations, review parking requirements. So we're doing that tonight. And some general themes that we're looking for tonight with these updates are better alignment between the parking table and the use tables. So again, we have a use table, table 5-1, and then we have our parking tables, which talk about number of parking spaces, number of stacking, number of bicycle parking. So looking for better alignment there. And then aligning the parking requirements between similar uses. So what you find, and sometimes when we have retail sales or convenience goods, some of the uses within the categories have different requirements, but they're somewhat similar. So we're trying to make those align better with each other so that if Stan's business and Flora's business are somewhat similar, but in a similar category, but a different subcategory, that we still have the same parking requirements. So it'll help, we believe, help other businesses move in and out of buildings without having to worry about parking requirements or increases in parking. So when we looked at the current standard shared parking regulations, we note that the ordinance notes that shared parking is encouraged. There's a methodology that goes into it. So if you have different uses, they're parked at different times of day, and there's a percentage that we do in a calculation. This methodology is pretty consistent with other municipalities. There's alternate methodologies if a petitioner couldn't make it work with our methodology, or if they didn't think if it was they didn't feel it was consistent with what they were looking to do. So they can present a study based on the Urban Land Institute or Institute of Transportation Engineer models to talk about shared parking. Shared parking can be located on-site or off-site. So we are, as a staff, not proposing any changes to our shared parking regulations at this time. We believe through better alignment, like I spoke of just a few minutes ago with parking requirements, will assist in some of these shared parking allowances and calculations as well. One of the parking ordinance updates that we're looking at is a maximum requirement. So currently any commercial parking lots over 100 spaces, there's a ratio that's maximum allowed, and a special use procedure if the desire is to exceed 4.5. We are proposing to reduce that for any non-residential parking lot over 50 spaces and a maximum of 140% in excess of minimum requirements. So again, we're establishing a minimum and a maximum for any parking lots over 50. When we looked at this, a lot of the new development on Ogden Avenue, like the Andes, has about 29 spaces or 30 spaces. A lot of the new smaller developments, our parking lots are between 30 and 40, so those would not be impacted. But anything larger that we might see come in, whether that's an industrial building or a commercial building, a larger commercial building with over 50 spaces, we would then have this restriction on the maximum amount of spaces that would be allowed by right. If they needed more, they could come in for a special use to appear before this board and explain why they need more parking than what we're going for. This is all to try to reduce costs a little bit and also to increase green space and open space on lots throughout the community. When we look at our parking ordinance section table 7-1, this is our main parking table. It has all the various uses. These do not align exactly with our use table. So these parking tables don't align right now currently. There's some that are similar, but then we have instances where staff is making the interpretation that based on this use, it falls into this use category. And so then it would fall into this category of parking. So what we've done is we've updated those requirements. So as you'll see in the packet, I'm not going to show all of them tonight, but as you'll see in the packet, those new uses are going to align. The new parking table will align with the use table. So it's easy for staff and petitioners to find where their use is and what their parking is and what their parking requirements are. A couple of the changes that we're going to highlight here on this one is that the schools are currently it's based on a student number. Just a second. It's based on a student number, existing regulations, but we're looking at doing a parking study for the schools. That's how we've done in the past. They know what their parking needs are, and they can provide us a study that shows what they need to do. Animal services, which are boarding, grooming, and veterinary care, being reduced by half a space per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. Assembly and entertainment, that's reduced to 0.20 spaces per person or seat. This is based on occupancy or design. Business support services and consumer maintenance and repair services are being reduced again by 1 space. Personal improvement services, so these are like spas, health clubs, and those type of things. It varies, and this is where we talked about earlier. Some of them are 3.5 per 1,000, some are 5 per 1,000. This is going down to 3.5 per 1,000 now. So that's what we're proposing to do in this location. Banks down from 3.5 to 2.5. Business offices, 3 to 2.5. Medical offices are 4.5 per 1,000 down to 3.3. Retail sales, 3.5 to 3. And then industrial uses are 1.17 to 1. We'll be reducing in proposed regulations. These are consistent with what we're seeing in other communities where people are reducing their parking requirements. We're finding a lot of businesses have an abundance of parking that's not being used. So we're just trying to reduce that on our end of things to not require them to have to put so much in. And the other updates to our parking regulations here, we're aligning our shared parking calculations with our use table, bicycle parking ratios with our use table. So there's a little bit more similarity. Location of off-street parking. We've clarified that parking is prohibited in the street yard and the Fairview districts. So that was something when we rezoned some of those areas to Fairview, we missed that one. So we're going to add that one in there. And then we added that if you do off-street parking, off-site parking, I should say, not off-street parking, but you're allowed to have your required parking within 1,000 feet. Sometimes that's across the street sometimes. So we just want to make sure it's connected via private or public sidewalk as well. So you're not walking through a yard or cutting through right away. That's turf. So we wanted to make sure it's connected via private or public sidewalk. With parking area design as well, you'll see this sometimes in some of our multifamily developments because those developments have usually one user that uses those spaces and people are familiar with the garage. They can reduce the stall width. That is currently limited to larger multifamily, so we're going to make it for all multifamily residential uses where they can go from a 9-foot stall width to 8.5 feet. This is based on the fact that there's not a lot of turnover in these spaces. Turnover in spaces like shopping centers or the Andes or a Wendy's where you get a lot of people in and out. That requires a little bit wider, but we found in the professional societies have found that you can usually reduce those when people know that that's their parking space and they know how to get in there. And it's really just that person that's using that stall. And then drive-through and drive-in facilities, we've aligned table 5.7 with the use table in 5.1 a little bit, and we've updated our car wash and fueling station requirements for stacking as well. All of this information can be found in the staff report. I'm just going a little bit high level here just to make sure we hit the highlights, but if there's any specific questions Chairman and the board might have, I'm happy to answer those coming up here. Minor clarifications and modifications. Again, these are items that staff have found over since the last time we did text amendments that will help staff administer the code and potentially help and as well help petitioners as they look to provide developments or proposals to staff for either approvals by staff or before the Planning and Zoning Commission, Village Council. So what we've done with lot and building regulations, we've clarified the minimum setback for commercial properties adjacent to residential properties. So we have a couple instances where there's a commercial property adjacent to residential property, and the setback for that commercial property is the setback for the residential property, and sometimes it's a percentage. And so if we have a 300-foot wide residential property next to a 50-foot wide commercial building, that setback would be 30 feet for the commercial building, and it's just not practicable to have anything built on that property. So we've changed it to a minimum of 10-foot setback that way, so it's just a little clearer what that regulation is. Daycare uses, and talking to our attorneys, we wanted to make sure we added adult daycare in here to the daycare uses. Our small group homes, we've eliminated the separation distance requirement as proposed. Small group homes can go in without by right. So in many instances, staff does not know if somebody just moves in with a small group home where they are located. They're not required to tell us where they're locating. So we're removing that separation distance as proposed. Temporary real estate offices, this is falling out of the Talent Preserve subdivision where we had to have special provisions to allow a temporary sales office in a model home in their zoning district. So we're going to allow those in R1 to R4. This is in here. Not sure how applicable this will be moving forward, as I think Talent Preserve is probably our last major subdivision of that size. With screening, we've clarified screening of ground-mounted mechanical equipment to not be able to include chain link fences with slats, and we've wanted to prohibit exterior roof access ladders as well. Fences, we've clarified that chain link fences with vertical slats or mesh are not solid design fences, so we've had some permits come in for that. Special uses, so we had one tonight, or no, we did not have one tonight, I apologize. We see these a lot before the Planning and Zoning Commission. Special uses have a 6-month lapse period, year period where they have to get a permit or be under construction or have established the use, or else they expire and they require an extension through the village council. We're clarifying that if they're granted in conjunction with the planning and development, they do not expire. So they remain intact, just like the PUD remains intact. And we've also added in here where we allow for a minimal decrease in green space. So right now, if you approve a special use with 5,000 square feet of green space, they have to provide the 5,000 square feet of green space, or they have to come back for another approval. So with the PUDs, they're allowed a maximum of 5% decrease in green space. So that comes in when they do some final designs and they're organizing things. There's sometimes a little bit of a decrease in green space, not substantial, but this allows us for a minimal decrease without having to come back before you or the village council. With regards to building coverage, we've clarified a building coverage bonus as it relates to accessory structures and what's allowed in that one. Setbacks, we've increased the eave and gutter encroachments into the street and rear setbacks as we see more modern homes that are trying to be sustainable with longer eaves out. We're proposing a larger encroachment in the street and rear setbacks to allow that to occur. We do not propose that for the side yards where neighbors are closer in that way. This is the current street and rear setbacks. Rear setbacks are 20 feet and the street setbacks vary from 25 to 40 feet. So we felt that there was enough there. And then we clarified our height with stair enclosures in some of the multifamily and townhome developments. We see they're having a roof deck. So this clarifies that stair enclosure or elevator enclosure to get up to that roof deck are exempt from height requirements, as long as there's not programmable space in those fourth floors. And they're like if it's a 3-story townhome and the fourth floor is the roof with the roof deck, as long as there's no programmable space. So not a living room, not a kitchen. It can be a stair, an alleyway, and a closet, or not a hallway and a closet just to get up to that roof deck. In terms of schedule, we've talked about environmental items at our last meeting. Tonight we're talking about parking and minor clarifications. The village will be having a digital sign and housing check-in with the village council in July sometime. Not sure which meeting that will be in. So that is based on, our housing check-in will be based on the Build Illinois Act that was proposed by Governor Pritzker, did not pass any of the state legislature. So right now we're going to check in with the village council in July to see how they'd like us to propose to move forward with any housing opportunities and changes to that ordinance. And then also talk about digital signs in the community as well to get in, check in with them so staff can start working on some proposed amendments on those two items. So the next time you'll see us maybe August or September to talk about the use table and potentially expanding some usage as identified in the comprehensive plan, signs and housing as well. So that might be 1 or 2 meetings, just depending on how we come out of that meeting with the village council. Chairman, thank you for indulging me tonight. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the Planning and Zoning Commission might have. Thank you.
I'll just say a special thank you to Stan for covering all of that information in an impressive amount of time. And Carter Moran too, actually did a lot of our research for the parking who had the night off tonight too, for that information in front of you. So well done, Stan.
Thank you.
Chairman, I got a question.
Sure.
Stan, could you, just for my own sake, what's a small group home, or can you just provide some clarity to that?
So sometimes that is a group home of 8 or less people that might have some physical disabilities that live as a housing unit. And typically there's somebody that is there as a staff member that lives there, but they live there as a community in that house.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Stan?
I just wanted to clarify. So what I'm hearing is even though we bring up parking in the downtown areas a lot, we're actually reducing that requirement.
So the state law, people over parking, prohibits us from requiring parking if you're within a half a mile of a transit hub, which our train stations qualify as a transit hub. It's based on the amount of trains in the morning they go out and the amount of trains that come out in the evening. So those 3 train stations qualify as a transit hub.
So admitting I've never read it, so you put a business within a half mile walking, half mile as the crow flies to any of these transit hubs, we can't require them to have parking?
That's correct.
Or any kind of development?
That's correct. And that is a state law.
And it seems, make a general statement that between the recent state laws and just kind of planning theory in general, recently the trend is to require less parking, smaller parking lot, the big C's of parking lots trying to incorporate maximum allowable parking stalls and kind of shrinking and downsizing parking just in general.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that in the planning realm and the conferences that we go to. We see reduced parking regulations, not requiring so much parking, not such a big sea of parking in that way. And then these transit hubs with downtown, the village already has, well, we currently have on the books, reduced parking ratios. We don't require any parking in the downtown business zoning district for any development other than medical offices or multifamily residential.
And then we expanded at the FB and FC in the Fairview district. So we already have precedent for not having any parking required for certain uses. Obviously with the map in front of you, that does impact commercial properties in Ellsworth Business Park, which we've never had exemptions. And then obviously the residential uses that we do have in downtown of Fairview where we do have a requirement will not have a requirement now for the state.
Even in Ellsworth, somebody could have a light industrial place. We just can't say they need to have a place for employees to park.
If they voluntarily provide parking, I think some of it will become voluntary. I think a business owner will say, I need places for my employees to park, and we'll provide that parking for them. But it's not something that we can say, if our current regulation said you have to provide 50 and they say, I'm only going to provide 40, we say, yes, the 40, and then you have to meet our requirements in terms of landscaping and setbacks and standards of parking stall size and stuff like
We
that.
can enforce the trees and things like that.
If they voluntarily provide that parking, yes.
And we'll make sure as a staff, when you have these planning and zoning reports in front of you for cases that might be in this area, that will, just like we do with other aspects of representing the applicable zoning ordinances for a case, for instance, we'll remind you of this as we're reviewing these items.
Yeah, and businesses that absolutely need the parking to survive, they're going to provide it, obviously. They're not going to invest in something or build something and just because they can get away with it, not provide parking if their business really depends on it. Or they want it as a benefit to their employees to be able to park on site where they work and not have to commute or take a train or ride a bike or Uber in or whatever. You know?
I was just curious if there was any conversation via state about anything allowing for electric vehicle charging or any requirements for that, or is there any conversation happening about that?
So there is requirement, the EV, I believe it's the EV Charging Act that passed a couple of years ago that the village has been enforcing for multifamily developments, there's a certain percentage that has to be EV ready, which means that there's a conduit available for the chargers, and that they have what a lot of people do is an energy management system now, so they can pull energy from different. I'm not an architect or an engineer, so they can pull power from different circuits when they're not being used. So they can charge a car in the middle of the night when the washer and dryer are not being run, or the lights are not on in the units and stuff like that. So there is that requirement for multifamily residential that we've been following. And then there's also a requirement for new single family homes that they have capacity in the for a plug-in hybrid or a plug-in if they wanted to do that too.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Stan? Anybody? No? Okay, were you just, yeah, I know.
Okay. Sure.
But ultimately, you're just looking for comments and feedback, correct?
Correct. We're just looking for comments and feedback tonight because what we're doing is we've taken your comments on the environmental stuff we spoke about in April, I believe, and we're making modifications to those as directed by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and preparing that to ultimately. So what we would do is after we talk about the next things and we get through everything, we would come back for a formal public hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission to formally recommend or not recommend the zoning ordinance changes. And then that would go to the village council later this year or early next year for their consideration.
Right. Okay.
So any comments you have on any of the stuff we talked about tonight, we welcome those.
Okay. I see some people in the audience who I'm guessing are going to have something to say about some of these parking changes. So we're going to go to the public and it's opportunity to come up if you have any questions or comments or anything, but just so that we get it on the record, I'd ask that you come up to the podium as usual. If you do have anything you'd like to say at this point. I think we're good for now.
Yeah. We've been informed.
Okay. Call you later. So I say, I gotta admit, I'm a little surprised. Okay. No other comments then on this for staff?
I just will ask the question generally, is the Planning and Zoning Commission positive about the changes we're making or supportive of the changes we're making?
I think they make sense. I'm in support of them. I didn't see anything in here that I feel like I'm concerned over anything. I do think that some of the parking changes that are partially driven by the state, I think are a little more lax than I kind of expected, but I just think that it's, that's the trend, and trying to get people to, these downtown or these urban areas that have public transportation, less dependent on automobiles. And this is one way that you do it. So I just think it's going to require a little bit of mindset change for some people, but ultimately I'm in support of it. I don't see anything that's alarming or any reason to not support it right now.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not suggesting that everything needs to be changed. I just think, particularly to Downers Grove, it's excellent. If you're going east to west, north to south, it does limit your options. Just the way Downers Grove inside with the train, when the train trucks through it. So just something, I don't know if there's anything we can do about it. Just something to consider that by the nature of Downers Grove, like moving north to south, it's gonna be more annoying, so to speak, a decrease in parking spots than east to west, or you can take the train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else like to chime in? Mr.
I
Barrett?
don't have any particular objections to anything.
Okay.
Yeah, no objections either.
Thank you.
I just have one more comment. I used to have the reason I bought my house where I did was we had a shuttle that went to the train station. Somewhere along COVID, it mysteriously disappeared and there was no notice about it. So I was just wondering if that was ever coming back. Probably not, but.
I don't think so. I think the village used to run that program, and then I think it turned into a PACE program. And I think during COVID, they had eliminated that program. I have not heard whether that's coming back yet or not.
Ms. Wolf, anything?
I'm supportive.
Okay, so we don't need a vote or anything, you just root for the commentary.
Thank you so much for your time tonight and your patience, and let me know your thoughts on this stuff.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, and then there's the spot at the end of the agenda for public comment that's not really relative to any of the two cases we've had today, but does, just for the record, there's 3 members of the public. Do any of you have anything you'd like to, general comments make? Oh, well, I just have.
This keeps coming up all the time over there where I live at Oak Tree Towers. Scott Richards. There just seems to be a question, there used to be a long time ago, where we could not park on public streets in Downers after 2 a.m. Is that gone? Because we've got people parking overnight, well, all over. But some people are saying, well, no, you can't park over it, you know, and it's like, I've never seen, did they get rid of that law? Or do
We
we?
still have the restriction from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m., but you are allowed on limited circumstances throughout the calendar year to call into the police departments, and there's an app to park your car overnight. I forgot the duration of how many times you can do that per year, but you do have the ability.
Okay, because, I mean, around us, Saratoga, Warren, I mean, that whole area, people are parking overnight, which I didn't know. People kept asking me, and I thought, I don't know, but I'll try to find out. But it's still in effect?
It's still in effect, but there's special permissions if you call in to have your.
Well, yeah, but I know we were told that if you're going to have a guest or somebody, you would call the police and, okay, but there's a lot of it going on that I'm getting people in trouble. Never mind, I brought it up.
Okay, thank you.
Scott.
All right, anything else from staff? No?
Nope.
There a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
Motion by Ms. Frankovic.
Second.
By Ms. Everhart. All in favor to adjourn?
Darn.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.